The King in Black storyline is a massive sprawling event that happened in Marvel. And of course, with a massive sprawling event that happens in Marvel, there is a lot of comic books involved. Today we're going to be giving you the Omnibus, which includes all of the crossover issues that we chose to cover. So I hope you enjoy King in Black, a famous event that explained the god of the symbiotes coming to conquer Earth. This is Comicstorian. I make videos about comic books, we do audio dramas, so you know what to put into your collection. Let's get into it. Eddie Brock stands on a New York rooftop looking over his city. He is here. He can feel it. Cap, it's me, it's time. He radios the Avengers, leaping off of the building, catching himself on a web line as Venom wraps around him. Across the city, the rest of the Avengers are getting the alert. It has begun. Venom crosses the city, slipping through a window into a darkened room. Eddie morphs back, staring down at a sleeping son, waking the boy up with a word, drawing him back to the waking world. Dylan rubs sleep from his eyes as Eddie tries to explain, but the boy interrupts him. I know it. I can feel it too. Null is here, isn't he? Sadness fills Eddie's eyes as he nods, telling his son that they need to move. Over at Avengers Mountain, Captain America has taken charge. Move! Come on, people! It's time to go! Ground teams, evacuation ships are mobilizing to drop sites as we speak. We are the first on deck. Let's get mean, shall we? Cap says over the radio. Steve Rogers turns to Tony, asking where they're at, but Tony shakes his head, unable to track Null and his horde since they don't have heat signatures. But they'll trip over our landmines either way, Tony tells him as he motions to the screens that show that all of the old Kree and Skrull ships have been turned into floating bombs. You just like turning things into bombs, Cap notes with a smile, and Captain Marvel subtly shouts to them, pointing at the horde that has arrived. The stars in the sky have almost blacked out due to the large number of creatures. We're gonna need a bigger bomb, she tells them in awe. The symbiote dragons reach the field of destroyed ships, cutting their way through them quickly. Fire! Tony shouts, detonating the debris field and destroying the dragons. Meanwhile, in New York, Eddie almost collapses as he feels the symbiote creatures dying, but he knows that it didn't work. It barely slowed them down. Tony's cheers stop as he looks back at the screams, but Cap isn't waiting. He runs out of the room. All teams move! Move! This is not a drill, people! This is it! He shouts over the comms. In the skies over the world, it darkens as the symbiote dragons descend, and below in the city, Dylan tries to argue as Eddie opens up the safe room. He tries to explain that he can help, but finally Eddie snaps at him. That's enough! I made you a promise! I told you that I'd protect you no matter what! He yells at him, and Eddie explains that this is his fight, his mistakes. You don't deserve the things that I've passed on to you, he tells his son sadly. He tells Dylan that he's going to end it, and he pushes him into the safe room, but before he can close the door, Dylan looks at his father one last time. Dad, please come back. I love you, son, Eddie tells the boy, closing the door, and as Eddie stands there, his comm sounds and Cap tells him, we're going to Plan B. Across the city, the dragons have descended, covering the buildings in a symbiotic ooze. Cap leads the ground team, heroes with lightning-based powers, to combat the threat. As Cap fights to protect a young boy, he asks Tony if they've got any word from Thor. It's not looking good down here, friend. Nothing yet, but our big gun just entered orbit now. Shouldn't be long, Tony responds. We need backup now, Tony! Cap yells when suddenly there's a voice in their minds apologizing for the intrusion. This is Charles Xavier. If you require backup, please stand by. My X-Men have arrived. Charles tells them as the mutants flood out of the Krakoan gates, joining the battle against the symbiotic dragons. Xavier smiles, telling them that he knows not having a God of Thunder is an issue. But I might suggest a goddess, he says, with lightning crackling as Storm arrives, lashing out at the dragons all around her. Beneath the city, Venom swings through the sewer systems, heading for the Carnage Spire that was left beneath the city. Eddie hopes to use it to control the horde of dragons if the others can sever their connection to Null. Eddie sits, allowing the Spire to connect with his mind and connect him to the Hive. Let's go! He growls, and up above, the horde is winning. Doctor Strange's magic can only hold them back for so long, and Storm is being overwhelmed. But Eddie connects, hoping to help the others. Fear suddenly fills his eyes, though, as he sees the truth, screaming over the radio for the others to fall back. It's not just dragons! It's not just Null! This is how it started, before the symbiotes, before the dragons. Null's first enemies were the Celestials, and it looks like he settled the score with them. Eddie yells. Out in the city, the heroes look up to see the colossal cosmic beings descending through the cloud of creatures, their bodies now covered in Null's symbiotic beings. The Celestials land, destroying parts of the city with their massive bodies, and one of them opens, revealing the dark god within him. I see that my reputation precedes me, so I won't waste your time. I'm going to kill your world, Null simply says as he steps out. The symbiotes create stairs for him to walk down, and he tells them to bring him Brock, and he will make the world's destruction quick and painless. Cap orders for everyone to fall back as Null leaps into the air on his wings. Flying down, he floats over the heroes of Earth. And who are you supposed to be? Null asks with a twisted smile. The heroes look up at the Dark God as Tony tells Cap that the big gun is incoming in 10 seconds. Cap stands tall. Normally, we're the last thing guys like you see, but today, we're just here to watch. Cap tells Null. He's here awaiting your orders, Cap. Permission to engage? Tony asks. Cap's lips pull up into a smile. Permission granted. Go introduce yourself, Sentry. It would be my pleasure, Sentry tells him from orbit, and there's a crack as the sound barrier breaks as Sentry descends from space. He explodes through one of the Celestials, bringing out and grabbing a screaming Null, pulling him up into the air. Hi, my name's Bob, but you can call me the Sentry. This'll all be over in a... He begins to greet him, but fear fills his eyes as Null reaches out, grabbing him. The Horde remembers Sentry. It remembers what it did to Carnage. Now let me introduce myself. Null grins, and with a heave of strength, he rips Sentry apart, continuing to fly as he absorbs the void from within the hero. I am Null, Lord of the Abyss, God of the symbiotes. The darkness aside of you, that darkness bows to me, and now I am the void. The heroes are shocked at what they see as Tony gets on the comms and sounds a full retreat, but Cap shakes his head, ordering the heroes to evacuate as many people from the city as possible. We'll hold the line. Avengers, assemble! He shouts as they're interrupted with Null descending again. What was that? Your defiant last stand? I must say, I'm not terribly impressed. I had hoped the mighty Earth would have proven more worthy of a battle. Alas, you will fall like all the others. I've met your armies, little ones. Now meet mine. Null raises his hand, and the symbiote oozes that are covering the ground begin to react. They reach up, wrapping up our heroes, trapping them, pulling them under the darkness. Null smiles, looking up into the sky, and the symbiotes begin to form a shell around the Earth, covering it as well. No more sun, no more stars, no more light. Isn't this better? Null whispers. But Storm still flies, lightning crashing, killing more of the dragons as they swarm her. But Null turns and the symbiotes become huge, wrapping around the buildings, reaching out for Storm. And she's snatched out of the sky. In the command center, Tony yells for Eddie. We're gonna try something. We're gonna give him what he wants. Eddie tells Stark. Tony is shocked, telling Venom not to give in, but Eddie cuts him off, telling him, it might buy you guys some time. Eddie morphs fully into Venom, asking his other if he's ready. Though the symbiont is hesitant, it agrees. Let's go meet our maker! Venom growls, and above, Null turns with a smile. Hello, little one. I can hear you calling. The ceiling above Eddie explodes with a massive fist reaching down, plucking him out of the sewers. And as it reaches up, it flings him into the air, only to be caught by Null himself. Do you see how beautiful the dark is? Null asks. Please, just take me! It doesn't have to be like this! Venom gasps at the god. The mask pulls back, revealing Eddie's face, and Null looks at him and smiles. Oh, I'm sorry, there seems to be a bit of confusion here. My fault, really, I should have specified which Brock I was looking for. Null tells him. Fear fills Eddie as he begs the god to leave his son alone, to take him instead, and Null reaches out, ripping Venom off of Eddie's body. No, I will take my child from you, and then I will take yours. He tells him with a vicious grin, and with that, he releases Eddie and sends him plummeting back down to the city below. A nearby helicopter watches as Eddie plummets from the Dark God. Venom struggles, begging his creator to let him go. Now, little one, don't fight this. You and I have met before. You can't fight me. Null tells the symbiote, and Venom shifts. Don't take Eddie from me. He needs me. It begs. But Null turns away as Venom is brought into him. Dragons fly in the distance as Eddie continues to fall. He's afraid. He doesn't want to die alone. Time seems to slow as he falls through the air, and he clasps his hands, reaching out to a higher power. He prays. He knows that he hasn't spoken to God in a while, but he asks for one thing. Please, make sure my son is okay. He doesn't deserve to inherit my darkness, he whispers. Around the city, the people and the heroes continue to fight, but the monsters, they are too many. Beneath the city, Dylan gets on the radio. Iron Man here, what's going on? Tony responds. Dylan is shocked and asks if his father is okay. What? Who gave you this frequency? Tony demands. Dylan hesitates for a moment, and Tony sighs. I am going to kill Spider-Man, he whispers. He tells the boy to turn on the news and keep the line open for emergencies. Dylan throws the radio aside. Leaning back in his chair, he reaches out to his connection to the symbiotes, hoping to contact his father when suddenly a voice is screaming in his head. Dylan, no! Disconnect yourself from the hive! Null will find you! Venom yells to him. Dylan hits the ground as his connection to the hive is severed, sweat pouring down his face as he stares in shock. He looks up at the TV as the news choppers show Null holding his father over the city. He watched as Venom is ripped from Eddie and Eddie is thrown to the ground. Back with Eddie, he's falling. He sees the chopper getting attacked by the dragon, who tears it to shreds, the explosion throwing him away, and Eddie begins to tumble again. He smacks hard against a building, bouncing off, tumbling from wall to fire escape. His limbs twisted, his bones shatter with every contact. He continues to fall, and as the ground is about to reach out for his broken and mangled body, we are left on our cliffhanger. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and the snowy streets were quiet. But through the darkness, a man was on his way home with the presents for his family. He mistakenly dropped one of the packages, but before he could pick it up, he sees a tall, lanky Hulk looking at him. The man panics and runs back into the alleyway, which saddens the Hulk. But he looks down and sees the dropped present, and he's overcome with joy. He reaches for the neatly wrapped present, but then from the alleyway, the shadow of Null creeps over to him. The shadow attacks, causing Hulk to fall back and grab the light post. The lamppost snaps, and Hulk uses it to beat the shadow away, but the shadow just crawls up the pole. Hulk tries to shake it off, and he falls, desperately reaching for something. And that's when he grabs the exposed electrical wires of the lamppost and electrocutes himself and the shadow. The shadow screams trying to get away, but the Hulk grabs it and holds it tightly. And after a few seconds, the shadow explodes, leaving the Hulk all alone again. He looks over and he sees the present and quickly scrambles to get it. He excitedly opens it up to find a blow dryer. What purpose would the Hulk need for that? But just then there are flashing lights and the police surround him. He points at the remains of the shadow, but the shadow is gone and the police open fire. But instead of attacking, the Hulk jumps away. In doing so, the shadow reaches out to claim the officers. And as the Hulk lands on the other side of the city, he lands just outside of a toy store and sees a building kit that Bruce used to have. He remembers. He remembers Bruce's father destroying the kit and then slapping his mother and then him, which makes Hulk angry. Very angry. Angry enough to destroy the playset before him. But then something happens. Hulk changes back. Except he doesn't change into Bruce, he changes into Joe Fixit. Soon the flashing lights return, and as Joe looks back, he sees the shadow crawling out of the police car. Joe tries to call the Hulk back out, but the Hulk doesn't want to come out. He's too upset. Joe sees the Hulk's sadness and decides that this will be something that he has to take care of. The shadow follows the blood trail left by Joe after cutting himself into the store, pursuing him like prey. He leads the shadow into the electronics department, and just as the shadow gets close, Joe cranks the volume of the speakers to full blast. The sound waves shock the shadow, leaving it vulnerable. And then he takes out a can of hairspray and a lighter and torches it. He watches the shadow fade into nothing and begins to leave the store. But as he walks by the directory, he has an idea. A few moments later, over in the toy department, the Savage Hulk gets his Christmas wish, and he gets to play with all the toys that he could ever want. Null has just arrived and attempted to conquer the planet. But meanwhile, across the town in Harlem, Carol Danvers and Jessica Drew land outside of the clinic of Linda Carter, the night nurse. Hello, Carol. Glad you finally made it. Welcome to whatever the hell is happening right now, Linda says, looking around at the black goo that seems to be covering and infecting the city. The black goo that Null is using to conquer the entire planet. Across the street, Luke Cage and Iron Fist continue to help civilians down the street, pointing them in the direction of a nearby shelter, when suddenly Hawkeye comes running up. Linda, what are you doing here? He asks, motioning towards Cage and Iron Fist. We live here. Why are you here, dude? And Clint begins to tell them how he and Night Nurse are dating, and she shakes her head. Not the time, she explains. The group begins to argue, but suddenly a large symbiote dragon swoops out of the sky. I need you to help me stop that, Carol yells, pointing at the large beast. The group launches into action as Carol explains that the creatures are attacking the city. Clint launches some arrows while Cage throws car parts. Spider-Woman and Iron Fist move in close for the fight, hitting it with energy blasts, and the creature roars in pain as Jessica hits it with multiple venom strikes. That's it, isn't it? Energy attacks? That's the only thing that can hurt it? She asks Carol as she leaps away. Carol lets her know that that's what they think, but she needs to save her energy for the larger battle around the city. I've fought a dragon before, Iron Fist lets the group know. We know, Danny, the group choruses together. Jessica and Danny move in attacking the creature, but their energy doesn't seem to be doing enough damage. So Jessica turns back to Linda, telling her that she needs more serum that is keeping her disease at bay, but also making her stronger and angrier. Against Linda's wishes, Jessica injects herself and she feels herself becoming too powerful, even as anger is swelling up inside of her. She launches herself at the creature, leaping onto its back. Get off my planet! She bellows as she hits the monster with everything that she has. The creature falls back to the ground, dead. But Jessica has already lost control and continues to pummel the creature. Her friends rush to her side trying to help and stop her. And what follows isn't important to the King in Black story. Across town, Eddie slams into the parked car after plummeting from the rooftops above. The metal crumbles, the glass shatters, and his broken body lays there. Eddie! Spider-Man yells as he swings over to help his friend, and Brock is unresponsive as Peter begins to yell for help, but the city is under attack. No one is responding. Pete! Eddie gasps. Dylan, promise me. He tries to state, and up on the rooftop, Null sighs. Oh, honestly, how hard is it to kill one man? He says, raising his arms. Eddie groans in pain as Peter begins to lift him up. I know it hurts, but we gotta get you help, Peter tells him, and suddenly his spider sense kicks in. Peter ducks fast as an energy beam shoots over his head. Oh God, he didn't kill them. He made them into his army. Spider-Man shouts as he looks over his shoulder to see Earth's fallen heroes, now overtaken by Null's symbiotes. Spider-Man webs Brock and prepares to run, but suddenly a Null dragon overhead explodes in a ball of fire. Torch! Peter yells as Johnny Storm flies in. Hiya, Spidey. Get Eddie help. Take him to the Fantastic Four lab. I got this. The Human Torch tells his friend. Pete tries to tell Johnny that the symbiotes aren't going to be hurt by fire. Good! Then my Nova Blast won't hurt the people trapped inside, but it'll give you enough time to get away. Johnny says with a grin. Pete tries to reason with his friend, knowing that he'll pass out after his Nova Bomb, and Johnny nods. Do me a favor. Tell everyone I said something cool and heroic before I left, yeah? I kinda have a reputation to maintain, he says, turning back to the symbiotes. The city erupts into fire behind him as Spider-Man quickly swings away. Eddie Brock in tow. And a short time later, Brock is strapped to a table in the Fantastic Four lab. Machinery continues to beep as they try to keep the man alive. Spidey stands nearby, asking Reed Richards how they're going to fix his friend. Jane Foster, the Valkyrie, also stands by. She turns to the wall crawler, explaining that she has the power to see how near death a person is. And she turns to see the massive skull of death glaring down at Eddie's body. I can't tell you how we're gonna fix your friend, but I can tell you. We have to hurry, she tells Peter. And with these words, she turns to leave, explaining that she has a duty to shepherd the Sentry's soul to the other side. Spider-Man nods, telling her that he also has a job to do. So a short time later, at the door to Dylan's safe house, Spidey stands in it. And for a moment, he doesn't say anything, but Dylan lowers his eyes. Is my dad dead? He asks, and Peter looks away. Not when I left him, no. But I need you to come with me, buddy. They arrive back at the lab, and Dylan is shocked by the condition that his father is in. Reed stands nearby with Black Panther and Valkyrie as they go over their next move. Where the hell is Thor? T'Challa asks Valkyrie, but she hasn't heard anything yet. Blade stands nearby, arguing with the holograms of Professor X and Magneto, who refuse to sacrifice any more mutants in the battle against Null. There is no your people anymore, Magneto. This thing is coming for us all, the vampire hunter shouts. As Spider-Man walks into the room, he interrupts everyone's conversations to ask about Eddie, and Reed explains that there is no changes. T'Challa continues, though, asking about the use of the Infinity Stones, of the Cosmic Cube, or the ultimate nullifier in the fight against Null. Whoa, are we really discussing bringing that kind of firepower on board? I mean, he's just one guy, Blade notes, but Valkyrie looks at him, explaining that Null was the first being born in the void. So yes, I think we should take the King of the Abyss seriously. King of the Abyss, huh? Adorable. Namor says as he steps through the door, Blade looking at the King of Atlantis. Who invited Namor? He sighs, and the king slams his trident to the floor with a boom, snapping at the heroes, explaining that his people have been fighting in the dark for millions of years. You all just started and you're losing. I'm here, my people are here. We will fight. Now, do any of the adults in the room actually have anything to offer in the way of a plan? I do. Tony speaks up from his place at the side of Brock's bed. You're gonna hate it, and I need a dragon. Tony tells him as he stands. He explains that they need Brock alive, and the only thing that can save him is a symbiote. Dylan nods, knowing that bonding his father to a dragon could save him. Tony nods and explains the rest of his plan. Namor will swim to the deep ocean to awaken the beings known as the Black Tide. He warns the heroes that putting them back to sleep will be no easy task. Blade will travel to the Ukraine, hoping to gain the vampires as their allies. And over in the bar with no name, the supervillains will discuss how the heroes fell so suddenly. So the doors open up and Wilson Fisk, mayor of New York, strolls in. Ladies and gentlemen, who wants to make some money? As the dragons fly over the city, Tony rockets through the crowd deep inside one's open mouth, and he stays on the radio with Reed, telling him that when he gets inside, he's going to begin to break the monster's connection to the hive. He injects the monster with Extremis, and it begins to bellow. He can feel its DNA rewriting and bonding with his own, and he can hear its voice in his mind, but he begins to scream. Too much! Millions of voices in pain! He yells to Reed, and a short time later, Tony comes running back into the lab. He pushes past everyone as the symbiote pulses on his armor. I don't know how long it's going to take Null to overwhelm my reprogramming, but I got one. He tells them as they rush forward. He pulls out part of the symbiote that he captured and pours it onto Brock's unconscious body. No! Don't! Something's wrong! Dylan tries to warn him, and the symbiote slithers around Eddie, beginning to bond with him, but he suddenly screams, his eyes beginning to swirl, his vitals beginning to spike as Reed says that they need to get the symbiote away. No, that shouldn't be possible. I severed the connection. Null cannot be that powerful. Tony shouts, and Dylan steps in trying to tell the others to move, but the adults don't listen as they scramble to help Eddie. I said move! Dylan bellows, lashing out with his power, disintegrating the symbiote that is trying to take over his father. Everyone stands in silence. Dylan, do you have powers? Tony asks. Reed becomes excited, explaining that Dylan is their secret weapon, the way that they can fight back. He's so excited that he doesn't notice the sound of Eddie flatlining until the others point it out to him. Tears fill Dylan's eyes as he stares at his father, dying on the table in front of him. Dad? He whispers to him. Eddie Brock slams into the car after Null threw him off the building, yet while his shattered body stopped on impact, his spirit continued onward into the realm of the Black Void. He was falling through blackness, a place that he had been before, and the tendrils snaked out of that darkness, reaching for Brock's body. He could feel it, Null's influence taking over, his mind disappearing. Brock! A voice screams in his head and Eddie opens up his eyes. He could hear the voice, but he couldn't see it. Null's minions have you! Now, I can get you out, but it's gonna hurt like hell! The voice warns. The tendrils explode, and Brock is falling again. The voice tells him he has to concentrate. What? What do I do? Brock questions. Stop falling! The voice tells him that he is in the hive, that he has to stop falling the same way everyone else does. Brace for impact. Eddie can see the street coming towards him, the city below. He closes his eyes and he braces for that pain. But when he opens them again, he is crouched in the street in a perfect superhero landing. I'd love to tell you the worst part is over, but the next part is the hardest, the voice tells him. Eddie looks up to see Rex Strickland standing in front of him. Now stand the hell up, soldier! We got work to do. Rex orders him as he shoulders a shotgun. The symbiote pulls away from Rex's face as he leads Eddie through the hive-like hell that New York has become. Dragons roar in the distance. The symbiote goo pulses everywhere. Eddie looks up to see a group of people running through the streets and he tries to rush forward. He tries to help them, but he passes right through them like they're not even there. What's going on? Eddie gasps, and he looks up to see one of the symbiote dragons bearing down on him. Eddie, no! Get the hell away from that thing! Rex shouts as Eddie braces himself for impact, but Eddie wants to protect the family running. He rushes at the creature, but it passes right through him, sending screaming waves of pain coursing through his body. And when that pain passes, he opens his eyes in disbelief. My body feels like it was ripped in half. Dragon went right through me. Suddenly the world shifts and Eddie is standing in a dark room with Rex, people hanging suspended all around them. That was a warning, Rex tells him, and they begin to walk through the vast chamber with Rex explaining that they are in the hive. All these people, Null took them. Eddie gasps and Rex nods, motioning to the group of heroes that are suspended as well. Sorry to say, it wasn't just civilians. Eddie begins to feel sorry for himself, but Rex shakes his head, warning the man that there is nothing that he could have done. There is something that I could have done. I could have saved them. I have to get back to my son. Brock shouts out in anger. Sorry, but you're a codex now, a memory. The symbiotes, they keep pieces of all of the hosts that they've bonded with in the hive. And they aren't real. They're ghosts of who they formerly were. Rex tells him, putting a hand on the man's shoulder. He explains that the real world is gone to Eddie Brock, that his real body has died. The only reason that they're able to move in the hive is that they were bonded to the symbiotes longer than anyone else. Okay, so you just need to get me back to my body and I can. Eddie begins, but in a flash, they're standing in the room where Eddie's body lays dead on the table. There is no you. You died, Eddie. Rex explains, and Brock is shocked to see his own body as Dylan leans over his father crying. Eddie tries to reach out to him, but simply passes through, and Rex nods, putting his hand on Eddie's shoulder again, trying to pull the man away, explaining that there is nothing that he can do now. Don't touch me! Eddie snaps, anger filling his eyes, and as the scene shifts back to the hive. I will not accept this! I say when it's over! Eddie snaps and he leaps at Rex, pushing him back through the hive till they're both standing in the streets once more. They don't get to take my life from me! Not like this, Rex! He shouts. Rex is confused, asking what Eddie means. My death. I won't allow it. You said it yourself. You were able to control some of the symbiotes in here because you've been bonded longer than anyone else. Rex nods as he stands, reminding Eddie that it can't affect the physical world. I can. You think you have control here because you wore a symbiote for a couple of years? Well, I've worn one longer than any human being alive. If I could find my other in here, I promise you the two of us will burn this thing to the ground. Eddie tells him, determined now. Rex smiles wickedly, nodding in his agreement. Only problem is, getting it freed is going to be a little bit of work. Rex tells him, pointing, and the scene shifts. They're both looking at Null sitting on the black throne, venom twisting and slithering around his arm. Eddie gasps in shock, but Rex smiles, shaking his head. Not alone, kid. Like I told you, there's some symbiote friendlies in the hive. Some that have been here before Null arrived and don't exactly agree with his agenda. Tyrannosaurus Rex will have your back as long as we're standing, Rex tells him. They shift back to the suspended people, the shadows shifting as someone steps into the light. But most importantly, I'm happy to say, I found the venom that I was looking for in the first place. Flash Thompson steps out of the shadows, geared for war. Agent Flash Venom Thompson, reporting for duty, sir. Good to see you again, Brock, Flash says with a smile. The city of New York is covered in a black goo from the symbiote god Null. The sky is as dark as the world has been trapped into a globe of Null's power, and dragons roar as they fill the eternally night skies. Gwen Stacy, known as Spider-Woman, is in her own universe, crawling up the side of a building trying to avoid the goo that covers everything. But she's had no choice but to leap to the rescue when she hears someone yell out in fear. Hold on, I'm coming, she shouts as she leaps past more of the black tar. She finds a man screaming as the goo is covering around his body. You're a superhero, right? Help me! The guy yells as he sees Gwen approaching. She shoots her webbing, beginning to pull the man free, but the goo creeps up his body, wrapping around his head. No, we're getting you out of here! Gwen yells as she pulls harder, her webbing snapping through, and she's thrown clear. She struggles back to her feet, calling out to the lost man, and the black goo begins to pulse and split apart, revealing a symbiotic monster. Gwen's own symbiote reacts, becoming more alert as the web slinger leaps away. I'm so out of my element with this, she thinks to herself as she swings away from the monster. She moves quickly through the destroyed city, finally arriving back at the apartment that she shares with some of her fellow students. I'm back, she calls out, heading into the living room. Her roommates are trying to stay calm while Carrie tries to make improvised weapons as Gwen sits on the couch, and her friends offer to head to the next scavenger run. How bad can it be? Carrie asks, and Gwen looks up at her. Carrie, "You know not to say that," she shouts, and the wall suddenly explodes inward as one of the symbiote dragons launches itself at them. Gwen quickly morphs back into her costume as she leaps across the room, trying to protect her friends. She ends up jumping around, webbing up the dragon's mouth, trying to contain it. "Come on, chase the girl in the costume made of living spiders, not the co-eds," Gwen calls out. She knows not to let the monster touch her though. She knows that there's no time for anything fancy. She quickly picks up a table and smashes it over the dragon's head. The dragon roars as Gwen launches herself towards the door. "You girls stay covered, don't let the goo touch you," she shouts, and she heads out the door, drawing the dragon's attention. But the goo touches the girls on the way out and they begin to transform. Gwen webs several cabinets and vending machines, swinging them into the dragon with super strength. She then leaps past it back into the hallway. Back inside of their apartment, Gwen doesn't find her roommates, but she does find 3 roommate-sized pods of goo. "You were good roommates. I'm sorry," Gwen says, trying to take a moment of peace. But that's when the dragon roars its head, pulling itself back into the room. "Now is not the time, I'm mourning," she shouts as she throws another table at the monster. As her friends begin to emerge from their pods, Gwen leaps out the window and away. The dragon continues to chase her through the skies of the city, but Gwen holds its teeth and manages to land on the monster's back after she webs up her feet. She lashes at the creature's mouth with her webbing, trying desperately to steer it. Gwen then leaps away as the dragon crashes hard into the side of a building, exploding into a shower of black goo. As she falls through the air, Gwen reaches for her teleporter necklace. She promised that she wouldn't use it unless it was an emergency, but she kind of feels like this counts. As she pricks her finger with the sharp necklace, her symbiote begins to react violently and something goes wrong. Meanwhile, over on Earth 65, Mary Jane Watson is strapped to a table, the jackal laughing at her, telling her that she shouldn't struggle. "In the absence of Miss Stacy, I need your help with a little project. You see, after our last encounter, I was able to acquire some of your fascinating spiders," he tells her as he holds up the small jar. "They bonded to her, and she bonded with you. I'm wondering if they might bridge the divide," he tells her as he dumps the jar out. Those spiders begin to crawl over MJ's body as she screams, when suddenly her body twists and she disappears. The jackal stares at the empty table that MJ was just sitting on. "Yeah, not the outcome that I was expecting," he says simply. On Earth 616, Mary Jane is suddenly ripped clear of Gwen's falling body. "Feels like I'm being split in two. Is that MJ?" Gwen thinks sharply, and MJ keeps falling as Gwen lashes out with her webs. "MJ, hold on!" she shouts, and then she pulls her in close, grabbing her and shielding her body as they smash into the goo on the ground. Gwen sits up quickly, the goo already covering MJ, when suddenly a voice can be heard. "Interesting," Null rumbles from his black throne. "What are you, little one? Mine but not mine, something else, something other. Like me. Everything is mine, and now I shall acquire it," he says with a smile. Gwen tries to pull MJ free, but as she reaches for her, the young woman rises up. "Mary Jane isn't there, little spider. Only Null. And as his willing disciple, we think we can come up with a new name. The name of our Lord's most favored child. You can call me Carnage." Mary Jane snarls as she begins to move forward. As Gwen stares into the eyes of her former friend, MJ, now Carnage, she tells herself, okay, this is gonna be bad. It doesn't just look bad, it's definitely, absolutely, no question about it, bad. And she might be in shock. Why is MJ here in the 616 universe and not back in their home dimension? And why is she covered in the evil symbiote? Carnage yells out, asking, "What's wrong? Null got your tongue?" As Gwen questions what the hell a null is, Carnage lunges at her, forcing her to jump away. Gwen lands on the side of a building, stating, "I don't know how this is happening, but we will figure out a way to fix it, MJ." And Carnage asks, "Are you so threatened by this strength that you think that you can take it away? You don't know how strong I am, Gwen!" Carnage extends her arm into a music shop, grabbing a guitar, turning it into a literal axe to cleave Gwen with. Gwen jumps again, telling her, "I don't want to fight my friend. Snap out of it, MJ." And Carnage asks, "Friends, Peter Porker died in your arms. You left us. You let your friends get kidnapped by a madman. You left the world in a worse place, and you let everyone else clean up your mess." Carnage swings again, but this time Gwen jumps and she starts to web Carnage up as well as the axe. With a brief moment to think, Gwen grabs a hold of the axe, stating, "I just need to get the spiders off of you. and the axe. Can't make objects this big out of, but before Gwen could try and absorb her spiders back, they all begin to skitter away with Carnage bursting out laughing. Those aren't yours! Nothing belongs to you. Everything belongs to Null. Now come here, little spider. As Carnage rips herself off the wall, Gwen tries to escape, but Carnage grabs her by the leg, slamming her into the wall itself. Still dazed from the hit, Carnage lifts her and slams Gwen into the ground hard enough to shake her suit partly off. She then leans in, telling her, Null would like to see you now. As the world turns black, Gwen can feel herself falling. She looks around for somewhere to web, and when she does, the line snaps. When that fails, she shifts to plan B, creating wings to help her glide somewhere safely. But at that moment, a black tendril reaches up, slamming her into the wall. She quickly begins to get back up, asking if it's MJ, but Null tells her, No, but you are safe, or rather, what remains of you. Gwen thinks to herself that this is probably that Null guy. Gotta think of something. And Null asks, What are you? You're not made of one of my symbiotes. Gwen jumps to her face, stating that where she's from, people like him don't own people, and Null laughs. I own your friend, though normally people put up more of a fight. She harbors a lot of rage towards you. Any idea why? As Null pulls an orb out of the wall, Gwen can see an image of MJ from a long time ago. She was trying to talk to Gwen, but Gwen was lost in her own head, and several years after that, they were supposed to be practicing a gig, but Gwen was off fighting. Null asks, Do you see it now? And Gwen yells, MJ's my friend! Null crushes the orb, stating, She was. Now she is mine. Accept it! Gwen asks, what does he mean accept? And Null asks, can't you feel me knocking? Gwen spins around and kicks, shouting, and you can't come in! Null catches her leg, asking, You dare! You're in my domain! And this space at the center of the hive is mine, and so too will you be. Gwen flails, kicking, stating, I will not be yours, and neither is MJ! Null scoffs as he throws Gwen back, telling her, Oh, we're gonna see about that! And a few moments later, Gwen opens her eyes back on the street, quickly jumping away from Carnage. Gwen asks if MJ is still in there, but Carnage grabs her axe, swinging it, yelling, My name is Carnage! Fight, you coward! Hearing those words sparks something within Gwen, as she starts yelling that she is not a coward. Carnage recoils from the hit, swinging back, stating that she is not special anymore. And after smacking her into a wall, Carnage walks over to Gwen, stepping on her head, asking, Why is it always you? Gwen rolls over, grabbing Carnage by the leg, stating, I didn't want any part of this. I never did any of this on purpose. Stop fighting so we can fix this, MJ. The suit you're wearing is going to kill you. You're not Carnage, please. Carnage pauses for a moment and screams, No, you're lying. And Carnage recklessly swings her axe as Gwen jumps back, stating that the suit isn't natural. She's wearing a synthetic suit. It's a parasite that she was exposed to, and unless they get it off, it's going to kill MJ. Carnage stops and says if that's the case, she doesn't have much time, and this isn't worth it. Null is going to make her a bigger deal than Ghost Spider ever was. She has places to be, houses to rock, and people to kill. As Carnage swings away, Gwen chases after her, stating, You're not getting away! Come back! With one of her best friends stolen by the super bad and evil Null, Gwen swings through the city, chasing after Carnage, who has MJ as their host. Gwen thinks to herself that she never really understood her powers. No one was there to teach her, and when she got a suit that responded to her thoughts, she nearly lost herself to it. So if that could happen to her, then what is MJ losing? As Carnage lands, she looks back, asking, Are you still following? You are quite irresistible. Gwen lands, telling her that she doesn't want to fight, but Carnage says that is pretty hypocritical for her to say. She's the one who killed Peter. You did it on purpose, didn't you? You just couldn't let him be special, not even for a minute. You had to be the only one with powers. Gwen yells that Peter was going to kill Harry. He was going to kill MJ. Carnage laughs. Just keep thinking on that, Gwen. Then webs onto a passing dragon, shouting, Bye, Gwenny! As Carnage is flown off on the dragon, Gwen asks, how did she know that the dragon would be there? She never even looked up. When she was with Null, he knew everything that she was thinking. He said that she was his. Are the dragons his too? Are they a part of Null? What about MJ? But Null also wants her suit. Kept asking why it wasn't his. If the suit could amplify the emotions of their host, it must be sending MJ into overdrive since part of it is still hers. If there's a chance to save MJ, Gwen has to try. As she lands in the street, Carnage tells her that she never really did learn how to deal with rejection, huh? Gwen says that this isn't her, it's the suit talking. It's Null talking. It doesn't have to be this way. It's all a part of some big hive mind. She's not angry. She's not evil. Null's angry and evil. Carnage lashes out, shouting that she is her suit, that they are eternal and they are glorious. Run away, little ghost spider. Maybe you can ditch this dimension too. As Carnage leaves, she knocks open a door to a nearby building, webbing up the entire entrance. Gwen comes charging in but is snared by the trap. She continues pushing forward, ripping away the webbing, stating that she just needs to get loose! MJ! Up ahead, Carnage walks into the large theater, stating, "We know you're here. Come out, Gwenny. It's shopping time." Carnage releases her webs again, but instead of grabbing Gwen, she grabs a hold of a man hiding behind a piano. The man screams and Gwen yells for her to stop, but Carnage lashes back again, asking, "Can't you take a hint?" As the man slowly converts into a mindless symbiote, Gwen yells that she did not have to do that, but Carnage asks, "I didn't? No, but I wanted to, so I did." Gwen says that she needs to stop. The suit will kill her, but webs up the room, stating that they have wasted too much time here already. She's going to make herself a new band. One that will never run away from her again. By the time Gwen finishes freeing herself, Carnage is already gone. As Gwen gets outside, she knows that if Carnage is starting a band, then they're going to want the biggest stage possible, Madison Square Garden. She slowly walks into the stadium, asking if anyone is there. Hello? And down below on the stage, Carnage says that she cannot ruin this gig. They have a new band now. Gwen runs down, telling her that she knows that there's a new band. That's why she's here, to challenge her. Carnage says that she's going to challenge her alone. Is she into being crushed? Is that a new thing? As Carnage begins to play her guitar axe, Gwen rushes over to the drum set, freeing the man sitting there, and begins to count down. Sound is supposed to hurt the symbiotes, right? Well, MJ's suit isn't entirely synthetic, so this should hopefully work. Carnage yells that she needs to leave. "This is my big event, Gwenny!" Gwen slams her drumsticks down, telling her, "Yeah, this is the moment where I come back." With every strike of the drum, the sound waves begin to break off small parts of MJ's suit until she finally swings her axe, destroying the drum set. Gwen says that without Null's part, she can command her spiders to return. Gwen runs forward, tackling Carnage to the ground, shouting, "We will fix her! MJ, you're not leaving! You are not Carnage! Please, listen!" Carnage screams as she withers in pain, but soon MJ's face appears, asking, Gwen? A few moments later, the rest of her suit shreds, and Gwen quickly picks her up, stating that they can get out of here. They can get home, they just need to. But as Gwen summons a portal, it fizzles out before fully forming. She shouts, asking, why isn't the teleporter necklace working? Why can't they go home? There's no way Null is getting MJ. But as Carnage begins to reform around the two of them, Gwen quickly webs up, climbing to the stadium's roof. She looks down, trying to figure out where a safe place to go is, but while she holds MJ opens her eyes, still under Null's influence. Not this place. Not again, she thinks. The Valkyries ride forward, attacking the dark, cloaked figure, but she is already hurt, reaching for her weapon. When someone stops her, someone puts their foot on the weapon before she can reach it. Jane Foster has arrived in orbit over the planet Earth, and she finds the soul of Sentry waiting for her, staring at the shattered remains of his own body. I've never felt more loved, uncomplicated and pure. What mercy death brings an old man, Sentry tells her. He's prone to dramatics, Jane reminds herself. Sentry looks up and Jane introduces herself as the Valkyrie. A Valkyrie! Amazing! I'm sorry, this is all very new to me, Sentry tells her. Dying is new to everyone, she says with a smile. Sentry asks if she knew that life really flashes before your eyes when you die, but explains that it was only the good parts. What did you see? She asks as she sits down. Sentry looks out into space, telling her that his memory was the time that he made his life so hard that he peed a little. Which makes me think that death is either merciful or a liar. He's got a great sense of humor, because whatever my life has been, there have been more tears than laughter. She, Jane says, correcting him about death. But Century motions down towards Earth, which is still covered by Null's symbiotes. He sighs, telling her that he failed his fight, and he couldn't even take Null with him. The sum of your life is more important than the end, Jane tells him as she stares at the Earth. She doesn't tell Century about the death marker that floats the planet, large and ominous, until finally she stands and tells him it's time to go. On another world, Alta is drinking. The bartender hands her another drink and a baseball. You're a hero, Tandra. A bored-damned hero, Alta says, taking the bat. She turns just as the creature rushes her with a chair. She dodges the attack, cracking him over the head. Anyone else? She asks as she lifts her drink. Beneath the glass, the words have been scratched into the counter. You are not dead. Trap. Fight this, the words say. The Valkyrie stares at the words for a moment before sitting back down. In the world between death, Jane Foster and Century ride on the back of her Pegasus. In front of them, the corpse of a mighty celestial blocks their way, but this creature has been corrupted by Null, and even in death, that corruption remains. In the other world, the Valkyries push one of the troublemakers out the door and into the streets. She ignores the thanks of the bartender, letting the bottle slip from her hand and shatter on the ground. The world is not real, she whispers. Jane Foster leaps from her horse and attacks the creatures that seem to flood out of the Celestial's corpse. The all-weapon shifts in her hand, becoming a mighty sword, the blade shattering the monsters, and in the shards, Jane can see the life and deaths of many people. Her name was Alta. She sees herself throwing axes with a beautiful woman. They discuss how no one has multiple axes to throw on the battlefield, and they kiss. Get him out! A voice yells, and Alta turns at the words. It isn't right, but it's something real. Jane Foster, meanwhile, yells at Mr. Horse again, ordering the beast to leave with Century. Not without you, lass, no! Mr. Horse neighs his response, but she orders him again, telling her friend that the creatures are after Century's soul. We're not leaving you. I won't let being dead stop me from fighting. Century yells, but the creatures reach out for Bob, wrapping around his body. Meanwhile, Alta rushes forward, and the other Valkyries fly around her. The cloaked enemy throws a spear, piercing her chest. It's not real. It's not real, Alta whispers as she feels her lungs filling with blood. Meanwhile, the creatures pull Century in, and Jane morphs the all-weapon into a flail. I'm coming! Keep shouting! She yells as she lashes out with the flail, piercing the corrupted souls. Alta looks up, seeing the all-weapon coming at her. Well, this is new, she whispers as she grasps the weapon. She's pulled through the hole, and Jane looks at her in surprise. As Alta is pulled free, Jane slips within the swirling mass of corrupted souls. Hold on, I'll pull you free, Alta shouts, taking up the all-weapon. Hey, Horse of Asgard, help me! She shouts, and Jane has the other end of the all-weapon as Alta climbs aboard Mr. Horse, and the two begin to pull. I will not leave without Valkyrie, lass, Mr. Horse shouts. I've got your Valkyrie, now fly like a veneer stallion, Alta commands, and they fly away as Jane is ripped clear of the corrupted souls. With the danger passing, Alta looks down at her hands. This is real, she whispers. As Jane begins to fly next to her, Alta spurs on Mr. Horse. Since when do Valkyries have wings? Alta asks. Since me! And who the hell are you? Jane asks her, and for a brief moment, Alta considers telling Jane that she is one of the original 9 Valkyries that rode for Bor and his son Odin. She raised a glass at the first feast of Valhalla, but instead, she says simply, I'm no one. Iron Man sits on a rooftop, looking over the city that has been swarmed with symbiotes, his armor still pulsing, having been bonded with one of the symbiote dragons. He lowers his head, thinking of the man that he just killed. Would you mourn me as you mourn him? A man who in many eyes is a villain? Doom asks as he comes up behind Stark. Tony doesn't look at him. Depends. Did I kill you? That is out of the realm of possibility, but for the sake of my curiosity, let's say yes, Doom says as he crosses his arms. Was I trying to save you? Tony asks. Isn't that what so many of you constantly waste your time doing? Trying to save me? Doom says. But their conversation is interrupted as Tony looks up into the sky, seeing something flying across the horizon. No, that's impossible, he whispers, and he turns back to Doom, who doesn't believe what he's seeing. It's December, right? Tony asks. Stark, this is absurd. It's not even Christmas Eve, Doom tells him, but Tony shakes his head as they both look up. It's Santa. I can't believe it. Santa is real, or he was real? Tony whispers as the spirit of Christmas comes flying towards them. But now his eyes are glowing with an evil light as Null's symbiotes are pulsing through his body. Oh god, they nullified Santa! Tony gasps, and he leaps into the air, not wanting to let Santa hurt anyone. Doom follows close behind, and as they float in front of Santa, Doom prepares to fire, but the reindeer spits globs of symbiote at him, tangling him up. But Tony is there, cutting through the goo as they both fire at the reindeer. Violent night, no moonlight, Santa sings as he throws a present at them, the present exploding, throwing them both through the wall of a nearby building. Incredible! First I killed Eddie Brock, and now I have to kill Santa, Tony mumbles as he stands. Doom stands up, lamenting that Brock was an addict who doesn't deserve their pity. And Tony turns to him, demanding to know why the Monarch is even there. I'm here to tell you that Edward was worth the sacrifice, Doom says simply. But they are interrupted as the sleigh fires at them. Tony leaps after it, grasping it by the runners. His symbiote slithers out and he begins to gain control of the sleigh as he bonds with it. And Doom fires in front of the reindeer again, blasting them with his gauntlets. Have at thee, you freakish flying venison! He bellows as Tony takes control of the sleigh. Doom points out that Eddie's death gave them Tony's new armor, which now has access to the limitless power of the void of Null's symbiote realm. Suddenly the sleigh twists and Santa tumbles out, plummeting towards the earth so fast that they can't stop him and he slams into a car. Okay, that was an accident, right? You saw that. I did not knock him out of the sleigh. I did not kill Santa. Tony asks Doom as they both land nearby, but Santa suddenly rears up, shouting holiday-themed profanities. That was extraordinarily profane, Doom notes, and Santa launches black tendrils from his mouth, but Tony meets them with his own void energy. The explosion tosses them all aside, and when the smoke clears, Stark and Doom get to their feet. You have eradicated St. Nicholas, the jolliest of men, Doom tells Tony. I killed Santa. This day keeps getting better and better, Tony whispers, but from the smoke, Santa rises. He seems confused now, no longer under the control of Null's symbiotes. His wretched infection seems to have been abated, Doom notes as they help the old man up. Santa opens his eyes, looking at the both of them. Tony, always such a good boy. And Victor, one of the naughtiest men who have ever lived, he whispers as he pulls away from them, walking into the streets telling them that he'll find his own way home. Tony reaches down, finding the old man's wallet left in the street, and he looks at the license, discovering that the man's name is Michael Dunwoody, and he owns the Snow Globe Holiday Decoration Supply. As they watch him leave, Doom turns to Stark and explains that they could use the power of his armor to create something stronger. That's why you're here. You want the armor. No chance, Tony tells him, and Doom doesn't push the matter. And so they both begin to walk away, but Doom suddenly stops. Something perplexes me. Michael Dunwoody referred to us both by our real names, he points out. And Tony shakes his head, noting that neither of them have a secret identity. Tony stops, asking Victor if he believes the man was really Santa Claus. Preposterous. I am merely conducting an intellectual investigation of what just occurred. He shrugs, and Tony leaps into the air, reminding Victor to not let all of the magic leave the world. At this, Victor pauses. Could Claus be Sorcerer Supreme? The Guardians stand ready. Reports have indicated that several worlds have gone dark throughout the galaxy. The representative of Silas shows them the last image that their computers were able to compile, showing a deity from before the creation of the universe. Nova looks down at the evil smile of Null. He turns to Hercules, asking if the demigod is aware of this being. No, he's not from any pantheon I recognize. A pantheon unto himself, perhaps. Hercules says with a shake of his head. The representative from the Kree Skull Alliance explains that several of their worlds have gone dark as well, and that the recon teams that they sent out have also lost contact. Suddenly, the doors bang open and the Queen of Spartax strides into the chamber. One of your astrological satellites sighted a dark dragon that has devoured the colony below. Now the beast is on course for Spartax, she warns, looking at Nova, telling him that something must be done. Richard Ryder rubs his eyes, and he tells the Guardians, guys, we got a mission. A short time later, the team tries to protect the city as the dragon continues to attack from above, buildings crumbling as Moondragon warns them that they have already lost 2 billion people. She explains that the black goo that continues to fall from the dragon into the ground is killing people, and she can't stop it. On the ground, they discover Rocket Raccoon, who managed to avoid one of the falling missiles of black goo. He leads them over to the destruction sites, explaining that the goo reminds him of Clintar, the one that Flash Thompson used to run around with. Ah, God! A voice calls out from the destruction. Rocket pauses, sniffing the air. Pete? He whispers before taking off at a run. Rocket crests the hill, looking down at the older Peter Quill standing before him. Holy flock! Is that you? Is this Hell? Peter asks quickly. Rocket's eyes widen. You, should look right behind you, Rocket says, pointing. The dragon roars as it rushes at Peter, and as he turns, he feels the power inside of him, and he levels it with the elemental gun. A blast of pure radiant energy hits the dragon hard, blowing a hole in the creature's head. The dragon roars as it peels away, flying off. Richard and Rocket come running over, hugging Star-Lord, happy that their friend is alive and shooting dragons. Peter is confused. He vaguely remembers them, but thought they died centuries ago. He explains that time moves differently where he was. Moondragon and Phyla land, also shocked to see Peter Quill is currently alive. Moondragon reaches out with her mind, feeling that the dragon is a vessel for the hatred of Null. And now it has a personal hate for us, she explains. She can see the image of Null sitting on his black throne and hopes that Peter has more energy in his gun. The elemental pistol begins to glow in his hands as he explains that he spent centuries training with the weapon. It is not merely a gun. He can focus himself through it. Did you turn yourself into a god while we weren't looking, Pete? Rocket asks him. Nah, a god would have thought to bring a flight pack as well, Peter says, shaking his hand. Moments later, the Guardians fly after the dragon, Nova holding Pete, aiming him like a human rocket. They barrel towards the dark dragon, with Pete ordering Moondragon and Phyla to flank the creature. Rich, we're going in! Pete shouts, and the pair fly through the creature, and suddenly they're in an inky void. Yes, come! Freely of your own will into my darkness. My dark is alive. It breathes and shifts, glistening and slithering. It obeys. Here I am master. Kneel before my throne, and I will show you. Null tells them. All right, none of that is good, Nova shouts, and Peter nods, telling his friend to get him in close. The goo lashes out, attacking Nova, forcing him to drop Peter into the void. Null once again tells Pete to kneel before him. And outside, Moondragon and Phyla continue their fight, but they're being overtaken by the symbiote too. They hear Null's voice in their minds. The heroes begin to fall as Null tells them, I'll be your master! Suddenly, a bright light fills the void and Peter is standing. Yeah, I heard you the first time. You say you're the master of the dark, the void. I'm the master of the sun, and you know what they say, sun's out, guns out, Peter says as he fires his weapon, destroying the image of Null on the throne. Outside, the dragon explodes as light bursts all around. What have you become, Pete? Nova asks in disbelief. A Star-Lord, Peter tells his friend. The Guardians regroup, and Rocket tells them that he has word that Null has taken over the Earth. I say we go help, he tells the group, but Peter shakes his head, explaining that if they go to Earth, they'll be putting it in more danger. He tells them that the gods of Olympus will have sensed his power from the other side of the black hole. They're coming for me. We have things to do, he tells his team. Wilson Fisk sits before his gathered assortment of villains that he has collected from the bar with no name. He slams his fist against the table, interrupting their witty banter with one another. You've all been operating in my city without permission. You owe me, but I've got good news. A giant alien god named Null has come to kill every living thing, and it's beginning to look like it can do it. Your definition of good news and mine are different, Star tells him, and Fisk glances at the new woman for giving her interruption. Now, if you'll work for me, stop this, save the world, become a hero, parades for all, and I'll make you rich. Or? Star asks. And Fisk looks around the room, telling them that he'll put them in prison, and they can wait for Null to come kill them in their cells. Incinerary raises his hand, telling Fisk that while he's afraid of Fisk, he's afraid of the Death God more. I'll take my chances in lockup. Fisk nods to him, appreciating his honesty and ordering the guards to take him away. And a minute later, a gunshot can be heard in the next room. Oh dear. It seems Incinerary tried to make an escape. What a shame, Wilson says as he looks around at the rest of the villains, and the rest all raise their hands that they're in. Fisk admits that he doesn't really know how to stop the god, but points them in the direction of someone who might, and he hands them over the reports that they're going to need and the contracts that they have to sign. Finally, he leans over the table. You work for me now, don't hide, show your faces, he tells them, and Taskmaster looks up. Absolutely not. A short time later, the team is walking through the city streets, unmasked. They've all been given a new superhero team name, the Thunderbolts, due to Fisk owning the copyrights to the title. We should call ourselves the Hope League, Fear jokes as they move through the destruction of the city. He suddenly leans down and a giant symbiote dragon snaps down, biting Snakehead in half. Thunderbolts spread out! Taskmaster shouts as Star leaps into the sky. How's Snakehead? She asks as she hits the dragon with an energy blast. Very dead! Fear calls out as he stares at the lower half of the former villain's body. Fear moves in quickly, attacking the monster with his gas gun, and it rears back in pain as Sky hits it with a powerful energy blast, destroying it. She lands amongst the team, but quickly becomes faint and starts to fall. Easy, madame. Perhaps that was too much, no? Thatchrock says with a smile as he catches her. Snakehead's dead and our big gun just fainted. I'm out. Ampere says quickly, and Taskmaster steps up, telling the villain that the team is going to need all the power that they can get. If the world doesn't end, Fisk can deal with me when he finds out, Ampere argues. I'll save him the trouble, coward! Mr. Fear snaps as he stabs Ampere in the back. Everyone looks at him in shock, but Fear pulls the dead man's energy gauntlets off his wrist as he explains that they need all the power they can get. Just because he isn't gonna use them doesn't mean we can't, Fear says with a smile. And Taskmaster looks at the rest of the team. Fine, we got a job to do. We're doing it as a team. Nobody else leaves or they'll deal with me. Rhino reaches down, tapping the man on the head. I'm leaving, he says simply, and Taskmaster smiles as he pats the big man on the arm. Hey, sure thing, big guy, didn't mean you. Star looks at Taskmaster as Rhino walks away. I'm playing the odds that getting beat by one of those dragons is quicker than him stomping me to death. Au revoir, hippopotamus! Batroc calls to their departing friend. And the rest of the team divvy up Ampere's gear and continue to move through the city. Taskmaster tells them that they have to head to the river and take a boat. Good guys steal boats? Mr. Fear asks. No, we commandeer them. Taskmaster nods, and behind them, the black goo begins to cover Ampere. Moving through the city, they round the corner to the site of the Heroes for Hire fighting against the symbiote monsters. Shouldn't we help them? We're on the same side now. Star asks as the group takes cover behind a car, but Mr. Fear shakes his head, explaining that the heroes would lock them up in a second if they get a chance. Mr. Fear's right, we gotta go around, Taskmaster says with a nod, and the group quickly crawls away from the action, moving through another side alleyway. We got company! Batroc says, pointing up to one of the symbiote monsters above them. It's like a drippy Spider-Man, Star tells the group in disgust, and the monster launches itself at the group, attacking Mr. Fear. Taskmaster steps up with his Ampere-charged sword, cutting the monster's head off in a single blow. There's a man inside, Batroc says in wonder as the goo begins to flow out. So Taskmaster leans over the body, studying it. Yeah, it's like venom, he whispers, and Batroc looks at him in shock. There's a man inside of venom? He gasps. Taskmaster nods and explains about the symbiotes, and with a smile, Mr. Fear holds up the head of Ampere. First time I've ever killed a guy twice, he says with a smile, and Taskmaster leans in to inspect the head. I killed him this time. New rule, don't let the goop touch you. He looks up, telling the group that they are going to keep moving, but his eyes widen in fear as he looks back down the street. Too late, Thunderbolts, run! He screams as a wave of symbiote monsters come roaring at them. Ah! Batroc could slow them down! The leaper shouts as he kicks out some of Ampere's gear. They keep running to the pier and they finally jump onto a boat, and as Taskmaster hotwires their ride, Mr. Fear cuts the boat free of the dock. Star turns back, seeing Batroc running for the pier. I'm going back for him, she shouts, but the villain reaches the end of the pier and leaps. His jump takes him clear across the gap and he lands on the deck of the boat with ease. Batroc has returned! Do not thank me all at once. He does them with a smile, and suddenly everyone's weapons are aimed at his head. Did they touch you? Taskmaster says sharply. Batroc does not get touched unless he desires it, the Frenchman says with indignation. Gross, Mr. Fear whispers. A short time later, the team docks the boat at Ravenloft Island. They cross the courtyard, opening the door to the main building. Inside, they find Norman Osborn waiting for them. Thank goodness you made it, I was worried. Norman tells them with a smile. Well, team, we're all dead. Mr. Fear frowns. As the Thunderbolts walk through Ravencroft, Taskmaster says that he really didn't miss this place. And Mr. Fear says that they're probably going to have to grab some inmates to replace their dead teammates. Taskmaster then looks at Norman calmly walking and asks, What's the matter? You're not your usual psychotic self. Norman says that he is just trying to be of some use to them. Mr. Fist told him that he was sending rescue, but he was expecting someone more capable. As Norman opens up the door to the security office, Mr. Fear walks in asking, Did you speak to him? The fat man said that he'd have a plan for... But at that moment, over the computer, Kingpin clears his throat. Mr. Fear yells, Hey! When I said fat man, I was actually talking about Blob. Kingpin asks, Is Taskmaster dead? And Mr. Fear tells him, No. So Kingpin says, Good. Taskmaster. hit Mr. Fear. Taskmaster punches Mr. Fear in the face, and Norman asks Kingpin, what will you have us do now? Kingpin tells him, for starters, don't ever get that close to the camera again. However, this next part will only be for Taskmaster and Norman. Everyone else leave. Taskmaster waves everyone out, stating, you heard the man. Everyone who doesn't dress up like a goblin, get the hell out. As everyone else leaves, Mr. Fear sees a cell and asks, wait, is that you, Figment? Figment comes to the door asking, Mr. Fear? I don't recognize you without the mask. Mr. Fear turns and asks Batroc if they can open up some of these doors. Figment here could join them. Batroc tells him, no, our team already has an idiot. Mr. Fear walks over, putting his hands up, asking, are we gonna have a problem? And Batroc stands there in silence, with Mr. Fear asking, what are you doing? And Batroc tells him, I'm figuring out if I were to kill you, how I'd do it. With his arms still folded, Batroc kicks upwards, lifting and pinning Mr. Fear against the wall by his neck, telling him, I would like to collapse your trachea and let you drown in your own blood. But then there's an explosion and Taskmaster runs out asking, what did you idiots do? Star says that she's pretty sure it wasn't them, probably that drippy space dragon that's crawling in. And Taskmaster looks at them, screw this, mask back on. If Kingpin wanted to enforce a dress code, he should have come to the dance. As everyone suits up, Taskmaster asks Norman, are you sure you don't want to break out the old rags and join in? Norman tells him, no, I have to make sure the rest of the facility is secure. You can handle this one. As the prisoners are all becoming infected by the symbiotes, they begin to break out of their cells, with Mr. Fear asking, do you remember when I mentioned recruiting some people and you acted like it was the dumbest idea ever? Null didn't think it was. Mid-kick, Batroc tells him, yes, the evil gothic spaceman agrees with you. You must be very proud, Mr. Fear. As everyone shoots, slices, kicks, and blasts their way through the horde of symbiotes, Taskmaster tells everyone, get ready, we're leaving this place, head to the garage. The prisoners who are not infected all begin to reach out of their cells, they begin to scream for help, and Star says that they should help them, but Taskmaster stops. You're kidding right now, right? They're psychos and we have a job to do. She stands her ground, telling him, yeah, we're supposed to save people. After an awkward silence, Taskmaster stops. Fine. But we're talking about this later. A few moments outside, a bus slams into a deer, causing it to explode, and Batroc says, this is the worst job that I've ever had. Inside, Mr. Fear happily is driving, and Star asks, is this really our plan? And Taskmaster states, that's Norman's plan, unless you have something better. He should be giving off tremendous energy. Reach out with your powers, let it flow through you. Star asks if he's quoting Star Wars, and Taskmaster says, no, okay, yes. I really don't know how that magic rock that gives you powers works. Just go out there and try to find him. If you don't, the world ends. After Star reluctantly agrees, Taskmaster kicks her out of the back, stating, great, good luck. Back inside, Batroc asks, did you really just throw Madame out of the vehicle? And Taskmaster walks back to the front of the bus asking, are you really going the speed limit? There's no one outside. Mr. Fear says, look, I'm crazy, but not suicidal. The speed limit is the maximum allowed speed, and with larger vehicles, it's suggested to drive below that. But while the two begin to bicker about the speed limit, Batroc says, hey guys, you should probably stop the bus. As the bus shoots off the end of the broken highway, everyone slams against the windshield, and Batroc asks, shouldn't we be falling faster than this? Mr. Fear opens the door and looks under the bus. Hey, Blonde Chick caught the bus. Good job, Blonde Chick. Star struggles to hold the bus up, telling him, shut up and do not talk to me. This takes a lot of concentration, so screw off. After setting and turning the bus around, Star guides them to Jones Beach, and as everyone gets out, she says that she can feel energy coming from this way. It might be him. The group sees a pair of legs sticking out of the bushes, and Taskmaster tells Star to pull him out. Mr. Fear says, wait, is that the Sentry? As Star and Mr. Fear pull the lower half of Sentry out of the bushes, Taskmaster says that Null ripped him in half. Star says that they are so screwed, and Batroc says that he does not think Sentry is going to be of much help to them in a fight anymore. Taskmaster says they don't need him to fight. They just need to blow him up and take out the bad guy. Guy's got a lot of energy still inside of him. That's gonna be an awfully big explosion. Star waits for a moment and then asks, how are we going to survive that? As the waves crash along the coastline, the symbiote crab skitters along. Suddenly, the crab is struck by Taskmaster's sword, and Fear sits up around the campfire, stating that this is boring. 5,000 bucks says that she can't find him. Just as the crab explodes, both Taskmaster and Batroc tell him that he has a deal. A few seconds later, Star jumps out of the water, gasping for air, and Fear quietly says, "Crap!" Star makes her way up the beach, carrying the upper half of Sentry, stating that this is the grossest thing that anyone has asked her to do, ever. As Star tosses the torso next to the legs, Fear asks if they're going to fight against the guy who did this to Sentry. To the Sentry! Batroc then asks if their plan is based on the film Weekend at Bernie's. Taskmaster says that they're using the Sentry as a bomb, not making him dance. Fear sits down with the torso, using his hand to make Sentry talk, and says, "We're a suicide team!" And Star asks if anyone is going to do anything about how unbelievably gross this all is. A few moments later, back on the bus, Star looks at Fear's patchwork of taping Sentry back together, asking, "Was the suspenders really necessary?" And Fear asks, "Are they too much? Dead Boy's already wearing a friggin' cape!" Mr. Hyde then gets up stating that he has a question. Now that they've acquired a fresh corpse for reasons, is there a reason why they are driving back towards the city that they almost died in? Taskmaster points at the window stating that there is an evil orb floating in the sky. They're going to use Sentry to blow it up. Now sit back down. However, the drive back into the city hits a snag as the bus begins to overheat, quite possibly due to Batroc smashing into every symbiote that he sees. As the bus comes to a halt, Taskmaster tells the newly added passengers that they are all honorary Thunderbolts. Here's a little wave of a sword and congratulations. Grizzly asks, "And what if I don't want to be a Thunderbolt?" Fear tells him that the last guy who said that, we killed twice. However, it doesn't take long for the new recruits to begin dwindling away as Fool Killer is caught off guard and absorbed. Taskmaster sighs as he begins to cut his way through, asking, 10-1? I always knew Venom sucked. Just before his head could be bitten off, Star fires a blast, obliterating the symbiote, stating, "Come on, we have to hurry." Soon, a swarm of symbiotes come rushing in, and Star yells to everyone to get down. After a few seconds of charge, she fires off another blast, ripping the swarm in half. Fear gets up asking, "What the hell was that?" "You are terrifying!" As Batroc and Taskmaster help her up, Star says that she really didn't know that she could do that. Just, give her a few days and she'll be as good as new. A few moments later, while crossing the bridge, Star asks how is this supposed to work again. Taskmaster says, "Well, we all know the Sentry has the power of 1,000 exploding suns. Osborn said the energy is still stored in his body. It's a wavelength of pure light. We can trigger it with a blast from Star's power. It won't hurt her, but it might kill Null." Star says, "Okay, but if Sentry had the power to stop Null, why didn't he?" And Taskmaster tells her, "I don't know, probably because it involved him blowing himself up, which he wasn't really into, it seems." Taskmaster then kicks open a door leading to the top part of the bridge, telling Star that she's gonna have to fly over there. There's too many symbiotes between them to get them there in a reasonable amount of time. As the door flies open, Taskmaster yells for everyone to get in. He'll stay back and buy them some time. Just after everyone makes their way up top, Taskmaster ditches his post and calls Kingpin, stating that they're good to go. He's heading out. Kingpin says that the money is in his account, and I trust that we won't be seeing each other again, will we, Taskmaster? Taskmaster rips the disguise face off, stating, "So long as the money is there, nobody will. But is this really going to work?" Kingpin tells him that it's doubtful, but if something does happen to kill Null, he'll be able to show that he had some hand in it. Later, at the top of the bridge, Fear tapes Sentry's corpse to her back, and Star says to remind her to have a talk with Taskmaster about what holding them off means. Fear tells her that judging by all the symbiotes crawling their way up here, he's already long gone. Star gets ready to tell everyone to wish her good luck, but Fear tells her no. And she says, "Okay, fair enough." But as she begins to fly upwards towards the big evil orb, there's a shunk from the stairway as a sword shoots through it. Taskmaster climbs up, telling everyone that they need to stop Star. If she detonates Sentry, it'll kill her. Fear sarcastically says, "Aw, shucks." And Taskmaster adds that it will kill them as well. And that's when Fear corrects himself. "Oh, yeah, let's stop her." While a symbiote dragon is chasing Star, she blows it up, and Batroc yells a series of explicit comments before yelling, "Fine! Dogman, Cowman, please hold Gorilla Man still." As Grizzly and Manbull grab onto Hyde, Hyde asks what are they, but Batroc then begins to run, telling everyone, "Goodbye." And he jumps onto Hyde's face, launching himself into the air, reaching for Star. But by the time he catches up, it's too late, and Sentry explodes. Later at the press conference, Kingpin tells the world that the Thunderbolts are dead, but that they will remember them for how they were in their final moments. They were. But before he could continue, Batroc kicks open the door while everyone else walks in yelling, "Bonjour, King of Pins!" Kingpin laughs, stating, "It's the Thunderbolt. How elated I am that you are not dead." Star asks, "Are you sure? Because you sent us on a damn suicide mission." Kingpin says, "That is absurd. But how did you live?" Taskmaster points at one of the prisoners, stating, "Meet Pigment." Figment tells him, "No, my name is Figment." And Taskmaster ignores her, stating she can create illusions on a massive scale. Kingpin looks around, stating that the presence of Figment and Sentry's rotting corpse would lead him to believe that they did not actually blow anything up. Fear tells him, "Nope, but the voters don't know that because they're as dumb as you." Sir?" Kingpin asks, "So you betrayed me. So what now? Revenge? You're going to kill me?" And Batroc tells him, "Of course not. We're here for the money." Kingpin then asks, "You wish to blackmail me? Very well. The money will be deposited into your accounts, plus an additional 50,000. Now you should make sure that I never see any of you again." Taskmaster tells him, "Oh, no, you misunderstand. That's just the first week, assuming some real heroes do manage to save the world in the next few days. Because the week after, the Thunderbolts are ready to get back to work." With the Forever Gate finally under control, the Fantastic Four take to 4th Yancey Street to try and restore its remains back into the normal world. As everyone gathers in the streets, Reed says that if his calculations are correct, the spatial compensator will decompress things at a phenomenal rate. He takes a deep breath and he says, "Here we go," activating the compensator. Within seconds, the building at 4th Yancey Street begins to unfold from its miniature form. Thing watches as the building settles in and laughs, stating that it's good that it's working, because it'd be kinda hard to go back home and kick up your feet if you ain't got no home to come back to. Reed begins to tell him that he did his best to try and restore the old girl to her original specifications, but they won't know if the inside survived until they go in. Everyone quickly heads inside of their home base to see if the restoration did in fact bring everything back, except for Johnny's room, which he is distraught that all of his stuff is gone. Sky tells him it's alright, they can get him new things. In fact, why don't they go do that now? They could even make a date out of it, Johnny. A short while later, over in Soho, Johnny walks out of the clothes store, stating that these are currently the only clothes that he has that don't have a giant 4 on them. Might need to get some more. Sky laughs, agreeing, and soon all the people in the neighborhood begin to walk up to her, stating hello and asking for small favors. Sky says to hang on. How could she have made so many friends after only being on Earth for a couple of weeks? And she smiles, telling him that she made a life for herself here. This is her neighborhood now, and she is their local superhero. And now that they're soulbound, they can share all of these wonderful and amazing things together. Johnny asks if she's okay with all of that, though. She had to say goodbye to all of her friends and family, even her birds. She tells him it's not like she won't see them again. Besides, she's made plenty of new friends here, and new bird friends. Watch. She begins to tweet out, calling to the nearby pigeons, when suddenly one of them slams into something invisible. Johnny shouts, asking if that's really her, and Sue appears, stating that one hit her right in the head. Johnny asks what she's doing here. "Are you spying on us?" And Sue tells him that she is just looking out for him. Somebody has to. This whole soulmate thing, it's crazy. Johnny begins to yell that she's had it out for Sky since day one. She never even spied on him like this when he was dating Dory Evans or Crystal or Frankie Ray. Sue says no, she didn't do that he knows of. But before Johnny could respond, Sky points up, yelling that something is happening. Everyone looks up to see the black goop raining from the sky, and Johnny yells, "That's the end of the world! Dragons! It's raining space dragons!" Sue radios in, asking if they're seeing this, and Reed tells her yes. They will regroup so that they can fight whatever is going on, and Sue asks where are they now. And as a giant flaming 4 appears in the sky, Sue flies up to Reed, asking what is happening. Reed states that according to Captain America, this is a Venom-related problem. A being called Null, an ancient god of the symbiotes, is attacking. Johnny shouts that maybe Sky can help them. She can talk to flying things, maybe even flying space dragons? Thing then tells them both to pipe down. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation. Put your game face on, it's clobbering time! The team quickly jumps into the fray to help with the other heroes, but Reed jumps back into the hover car, stating that he might have an idea on how to stop this. You all just need to hold on. As Reed leaves, a giant wave of black goo crashes down at everyone, forcing Sue to put up her shields. She looks around, seeing that her shield wasn't large enough to protect the other heroes, but before she could beat herself up, she sees Johnny and Spider-Man off in the distance. Sue yells to be careful and not let any of the goop touch you, but as Johnny tells Spidey to leave, Johnny releases an explosion, leaving nothing behind. She calls out to Johnny, but she doesn't get an answer. She then returns to Reed, but Sky flies in, asking what happened, where's Johnny? Sue says she doesn't know, she lost track of him. They need to get back to the lab but Sky tells her to wait. She can feel Johnny is still there. He's cold, hurting, struggling, darkness all around him, and he's alone. Sue yells to knock it off with the soul bonding nonsense. Her magic love bond can't bring Johnny back. If she wants to help, they need to leave. But Johnny and Sky being soul bond isn't just something that they state. It means that they are bound to each other. As Johnny was beginning to get taken over by the symbiotes, so does Sky. As the symbiote covers her, she lunges at Sue, stating that they need to spend more time together. Do some bonding! Sue quickly turns invisible to escape, but Sky screeches, bringing Sue back, knocking her to the ground below. Sue then falls into a puddle and Sky rushes down. She asks, how could she have left her brother to such a fate? Sue tells her to zip it as a force field forms around Sky's head, but Sky breaks it with her calls, summoning all of the new nearby dragons. As the swarm surrounds her, Sue begins to think of something, and that's what she remembers, that the only thing that seemingly stopped these things was Johnny's Nova Blast. She pulls out a small device, triggering it, releasing a blast large enough to keep Sky and the dragons away. She hurries, escaping to 4th Yancey Street with Reed, telling him that she was wrong about so many things today, and now Johnny is one of them. Reed tells her it's going to be okay, but that's when Thing yells over the comms, asking, "Yo, where is everyone?" Sue responds that they are back on Yancey Street, and they could really use some help. Thing tells them, "Sure, I'll be right there." But what they don't see is that Thing has already been controlled by Null's influence. He's on his way to take out the Fantastic Four. The city is destroyed, covered in the black goo, and the boy cries in the backseat of his car. His parents are in front. The windshield is cracked, and the dashboard is covered in their blood. They're dead. "Brock!" the symbiote hiss. "Dylan!" they call as they peer through the glass at the boy. The windows crack and the glass scatters as the symbiotes reach in for him, pulling him clear. Riot, Agony, Lasher, Phage, children of Venom, children of Null. "Help me!" the boy screams as Lasher pulls him in close, opening up his toothy mouth to eat the young boy. "What do we have here? A family reunion?" Scream calls, her hair wrapping around Lasher's throat, lifting him into the air. "The child is not for you!" she shouts as she throws him aside. The symbiotes snarl at her for forsaking her own kind to help the humans, and they begin to merge, becoming a multi-headed symbiote monster. A gaping mouth that opens up in the monster's chest has the voice of Null, and he calls out, "There you are! Still hiding behind your children, I see!" Scream hisses at him. A chuckle can be heard from Null. "You're vexing, child. I wondered when our paths might cross again. Time to return to the hive, where you rightfully belong." But Scream's hallmark is heat and fire. "Never!" she snarls as she launches an attack at the monster. The creature bellows in pain but recovers quickly, attacking her with a whip of teeth. It throws her into the nearby car before leaping on her. "This planet has made you weak. Your host has made you weak. All of you. Every symbiote on this rock." Null snarls, the monster reaching down, beginning to absorb and devour Scream, making her a part of the hive once again. "Yes!" he screams in triumph, but suddenly he stops, screaming in pain as light begins to break through his skin. It explodes into a shower of light and fire, and when the smoke clears, Scream stands alone, walking over to the boy who is still cowering in fear. "It's okay. I won't hurt you," Scream tells him as the symbiote shifts away from her face. "I'm Auntie. You're safe now, and I've got you," she tells the boy as she takes his hand. They walk away, unaware of the symbiote slithering into the sewer behind them. Meanwhile, over at Ravenloft Institute, guards patrol the perimeter, making small talk in the quiet of the night when suddenly one guard shines his light into the sky, yelling a curse as a black dragon descends from the sky. "Dragons, we gotta!" He begins turning to his partner, but the other guard has already run, fleeing inside. The man hits the ground as the dragons collide with him. The symbiote begins to slither, moving through Ravenloft quickly. The guards keep running further into the basement. The time is now. God is no longer coming. God is... The guard screams as he opens up a door to a hidden chamber, revealing the image of Null leaning over a dead body. "God is here!" Null bellows, and the guard falls to his knees, telling his god that he has merely come to prepare the body for Null's arrival, so that the cult can begin the resurrection process, the guard says, but Null leans over the body with a smile. "No need, my child. Do you know who this man is? Do you truly know?" The guard nods, telling him that this is Cortland Cassidy, the world's first serial killer. Null raises up, smiling. "None spread more darkness than he did. Now, after all of these centuries, he will serve me once again in a new capacity, Null says, and he opens up his mouth, vomiting forth another symbiote that begins to twist around the body. He orders Cassidy to rise. Arise, Plague! Null commands, and as Null takes his leave, he asks the guard if he's willing to give for their cause. The guard begins to cough as Plague begins to suck the life force out of his body, becoming stronger. It's good to be back, Plague sighs. The guards enter the chamber, leveling their weapons at the new monster, but before they can fire, the life force is sucked out of their bodies as well, and they fall to the floor. My, the people of this century are rather tasty. I do believe I'm going to enjoy it here. Plague bellows of joy when suddenly claws rake across the monster's back. He turns, seeing the great werewolf standing before him. That depends. You into getting your throat ripped out by a space werewolf? Then yeah. Jameson snarls, but Jameson begins to cough as Plague sucks the life out of him. A powerful fist hits him from behind, and Plague turns to see Misty Knight standing behind him now. A woman with a metal arm. Surely this is a wonderful world I've awoken to. Plague snarls, but they both begin to fall as Plague continues to suck the life force out of them as well. The guards begin to flood into the room, and Plague looks around at them all. More of you? Ah, I would stay and drain each of you to the bone, but alas, time is of the essence, and my lord demands my presence elsewhere, for it is time I avenged my bloodline. Plague shouts, and in a flash of light he disappears. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I hate this place, Misty says as she climbs to her feet, but Jameson stands as well, telling her that this isn't just a Ravencroft problem anymore. Notify our superiors. We have a new target. From the depths of space, a darkness has enveloped the world, driving humanity into a state of new madness. Though as Dagger, she carries the shards of light. She's beginning to feel her powers pale in comparison in the midst of complete darkness. This is not a mere absence of light, rather, the soul of humanity is being torn from its chassis. Good versus evil is a primal concept in the universe, one that has maintained a unique balance since the beginning of time. Now, they find themselves on the precipice of change. For some in the city, the darkness is the invitation to release the pain that swells within. And since Null has arrived with his symbiote horde, chaos has reigned in the streets. It's at that moment that Cloak and Dagger have seen it firsthand. But as the world has seemingly spiraled into the void, there's something that concerns Dagger more than that. That the symbiote effect has changed Cloak. He was never the warmest, but something within him has grown outright cold. His psi-link, the mental connection that connects them, has been severed by Null's dark psychic energy, and she has no idea what he's feeling or what he's about to do. As Cloak disappears, he reappears on the street, and Dagger notices two men about to attack him. She leaps down, stopping the men, but as Cloak looks back, he unleashes the terrors of the dark force dimension on the attackers. There has always been pain in this world, but hope tempered despair. And as the men fell, Dagger called out to Cloak, telling him to wait. Why did he do that? She had them down. Cloak continues walking, stating that she didn't have them down far enough. But as the two get closer to the police, the officer says that by their getup, he's going to assume that they are Cloak and Dagger. Dagger tells him, yes, what's going on, and the officer tells them that they have a situation 3 blocks east. Bank robbery, SWAT, and tactical have been overrun. Without saying a word, Cloak disappears and then reappears, releasing the horrors on the bank robbers and continues on his way. Cloak then walks into a church, and Dagger quickly runs in, asking what is going on. Cloak drops the robbers on the floor, telling her that she is the only person that he ever trusted, and that he is no longer the person that she has known. When she was on the streets, he would hide in the churches, but he wasn't looking for shelter. He was trying to make sense of the world, and Dagger says that maybe the world isn't supposed to make sense. And Cloak asks, where does he find the hope then? How will they defeat this? Dagger holds out her hand, casting a light, telling him within, no matter how crazy things get, there will always be light, and he just has to let her in, and they just have to keep the faith. The light begins to radiate around them, banishing the darkness, and as it fades, Cloak says that after Null, the world will never be the same. Right and wrong no longer means what it did when they began this journey. Dagger says that they can adjust to life however it manifests. And a few moments later, the officer from before walks in, stating that it looks like those men won't be robbing any banks anytime soon. Looks like it's going to be a long night though. Cloak tells her yes, but there's a bright side. Whatever comes, they'll be facing it together. Next up, we have Toxin, another of the symbiotes. In the Lincoln Tunnel, the trail between New York and New Jersey, an Alchemax transport gets turned over and a brood breaks free, slaughtering all of the officers so that it can try to contain the creature. But as Toxin watches, he says that they could be spending their weekend doing better things, Bren. Bren asks if he's complaining. He thought that they'd be excited to be getting out. And Toxin asks, have we been to a cult ritual? I'd be happy to just be alive. For so long, I was barely burnt toast. So little left. Even Lord God Null didn't care enough to save me. But they saved me. I'm healthier now, meatier, and full of opinions. Bren then says that his opinion is that the people are terrified and they might be able to help. Don't they care? Toxin stops him. Wait. There it is, your conscience. Hard to hear it over all the gunfire. You ready, Bren? Toxin jumps off the ceiling, punching the brood, and then the brood just knocks him away. Toxin says, okay, and he throws his tendrils into the brood's head, slamming him into the wall. And as Toxin gets ready to end the brood tells him to go ahead. They've had worse. Toxin pauses. What? The brood pulls himself out of the wall, telling him that Alchemax cut him up. He's human. Well, he was human. There's brood marrow in his bones. The pain, every day a new surgery. Can't even talk anymore, not like he did. It's been months. Now, could you stop my escape? Toxin tells Bren that he hates to admit it, but they might be fighting the wrong people. And then a voice says, you call this a fight? An armored man punches Toxin with enough force to launch him to the other side of the street. The man then says that they call him the Guardsman. Alchemax security, built to beat symbiotes. Toxin lunges back asking, they got security? Because all I see is canned meat! But Bren tells him that the punch hurt. Are you sure you can back up that talk, Toxin? Guardsman pulls his arm back, telling him, your god rained alien crap from the sky. Blocked out our sun. Your kind hit us hard. But New York always hits back, alien. And Alchemax is here to help. As the Guardsman punches the ground, he creates a small sinkhole, trapping Toxin, and Toxin says that is some tough talk from Little Green Man. The Guardsman fires a blast, asking, little? Does it seem little? Does it? As the smoke clears, Toxin isn't anywhere to be found. And across the city, Toxin swings through, stating that Alchemax has always been hot for symbiotes, but stuffing humans full of alien guts is a new disgusting low. Bren tells him not to mention hiring armored enforcers. That Guardsman nearly fried us. Toxin climbs into Bren's room, asking, what? That was playground stuff. Worried Dad would get mad that you were fighting? Bren yells that he doesn't even have his learner's permit yet. He's never been in a fight, and trust him when he says that his dad would be proud if he was. Probably buy him a steak dinner. Toxin asks, was it the punches to the face that you're stuck on? Because I can tell you all about my family. At that moment, the front door slams closed and Bren tells Toxin to be quiet. Does he think that anyone could tell? Toxin asks, what? About your new bad best friend? And Bren tells him, no, my malignant passenger. Toxin calls it out. Wow, that hurt. Not dying in a fire hurts, but I'll be writing a long entry into my alien diary. At that moment, Bren's father calls out that he is home from work. He fit 16 hours into 6 on this one. And as Bren opens the door, he sees his father wearing the Guardsman armor, telling him that he had one hell of a day. Dylan leans over his father's dead body, a tear in his eyes. And outside, Sue Richards and Blade fight against the growing horde of symbiotic monsters. Aided by Blade's vampire army, Sue yells over the comms at her husband, telling him that he has to hurry. I can't keep the shield up forever, she shouts. Reed nods, turning back to the young Dylan, the boy who might be their only hope. But he's still distraught. Spider-Man leans over him, telling the young boy that he doesn't have to do this if he doesn't think he can. And Reed and Logan turn back to the monitors that show the remaining heroes. We all have our missions. Above all, protect Dylan. He's the key to freeing our allies and the world, he tells them before turning back to Dylan with a sad look on his face. Everyone ready? He asks gently. Dylan nods, rubbing the tears out of his eyes. My dad died. I need to hurt something, he tells the group angrily, and in a matter of moments, the heroes are throwing themselves against the symbiote horde, trying to clear a path for Dylan. As the heroes fight, one of the symbiotes gets close to Dylan, but the boy waves his hands, using his strange powers to blast that symbiote off its host. Dylan suddenly turns though, seeing the symbiotic Captain America. You think you can defeat me, boy? You are nothing compared to us! We will devour the planet! Cap snarls at him and he throws his mighty shield, but Dylan raises his hand and he blasts the symbiote goo off of him. Sorry, Cap, I'm gonna need to borrow this. Dylan tells the hero. Cap leaps over him and Dylan knows that Null is in the hero's mind. I hope you can feel this! Dylan snarls as he blasts the symbiote off of Cap. Above the city, Null screams in pain, looking down. I see you! Finally! There you are, child! He says with a smile. On the ground, Cap comes to as a massive symbiote fist comes crashing down on him and Dylan. I can't push him back. I'm sorry, Dylan whispers to Cap, and suddenly a bolt of lightning cracks out of the sky, tearing through the giant fist. No, that power, familiar, but how? Null snarls and he looks up to see Thor floating above him. It's called lightning. You would do well to become accustomed to it, villain, the Thunder God states, and he lands next to Dylan, asking the boy how may he help. Just have my back. I could do this. A little thunder would help too, Dylan tells him as he attacks another symbiote. That I can provide, Thor tells him with a smile as lightning crackles in his eyes. The battle is fierce, the Thunder God covering Dylan as the boy pulls the symbiotes off of the hosts. Finally, Null has had enough, slamming into the street in front of the heroes. You! He bellows in anger and Thor steps in front of the boy. Dylan, behind me, he orders. You're the one that they call Null. Yes, I recall drunkenly killing one of your dragon pets once. Thor taunts the god. Null smiles, telling Thor that he is the god of darkness, the god of the abyss, and Thor tells him, quiet! Interrupting him. I am the last person that you will impress with your pitiful titles, so you may as well stop now. So you're a god, a king, good for you. Thor tells Null as he launches himself at him. Now allow me to teach you what those words truly mean, Thor says as he swings his hammer. Null dodges, slashing the god across the chest, throwing him back to the earth. He grabs Thor, slamming his head against the ground, choking him. Dylan runs up to help, but Null swats him aside with a backhand. Dylan hits the ground and the black goo begins to grab at him, but he can't stop them. There are too many. Null is too strong. Get off! Thor shouts angrily as he kicks Null away. Don't you see? You can't stop me, the world is mine! Null grins as Dylan is now covered in symbiotes, but Thor floats in the air. Mjolnir begins to glow and crack with energy. Nay, Midgard is under my protection. I have killed hundreds like you. All of them claimed to be the one true death, the living void, the end. And to that I say, I am King Thor Odin's son, god of thunder and lightning, and protector of every world within this realm. Thor bellows as he lifts his hammer. And when I say it ends, I have had enough. He cries out with anger. Mjolnir swings mightily, cracking Null across the jaw, with the sound of thunder rumbling in the skies. His jaw flies free of his body, landing nearby. Null hits the ground, his tongue swinging freely out of his mouth. Your world will burn for that. Null hisses as the symbiote goo forms another jaw for him. He points up into the sky, and Thor turns. The Celestial's eyes beginning to glow, and they turn to look at the Thunder God. Thor prepares to leap into the sky as they open fire on the city, but Null grabs him, stabbing him in the back with a symbiote blade. You know the pain of all black, don't you? Well, now you have the honor of being killed by its creator! Null snarls as Thor screams in pain. On the radio, Reed is yelling for anyone that can hear him, but it's Tony that breaks through, telling the other genius scientist to calm down. How do you expect to fight two Celestials, Tony? Reed asks, and Tony steers his symbiote dragon through the skies, explaining to Reed that since Dylan freed of Null's hive, they've been getting along, and they slam into the Celestial. How am I gonna beat a Celestial? I'm not! Tony tells Reed as he and the symbiote begin to take over the cosmic being. I'm gonna make it my new favorite armor. Tony says with a smile. The Celestial turns, slamming its fist into another Celestial. On the ground, Null looks at Dylan, who is now trapped in his symbiotes. I am the only family that you have now. Come with me. Let us talk, my son. Null tells the boy, and Dylan screams, and on the ground, Thor gasps in pain, the sword still sticking through him. He looks up at his two ravens. Hugin, Munin, swiftly, find him. He gasps to the magical birds and they turn speeding through the air in a blur. And in moments, they've passed into the galaxy looking for Null's opposite. Streaking across the cosmos, the Silver Surfer is coming. And so the dread hand of fate falls once again upon Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, as he secures the armor and sets out to dispatch the sly serpent of evil. Nay, not a serpent, but a dragon. Technically more of an alien super predator, but you get the idea. Up in the clouds, the knight swings the cursed ebony blade mounted on his third best flying steed, as the two previous had already been overthrown. But the knight dismounts his third trusted friend to turn the dark edge of his blade against evil. Though the evil alien super predator easily shakes the hero off, sending him barreling to the world below. In hindsight, the knight's preparations were a bit hasty on his departure. The knight gracefully flails, driving the blade into the beast's skin, and that is when he sees the true evil ahead, the one known as Null. However, this attack is not one that was unwanted. In fact, Null can see into the valiant knight's heritage, bearing witness to all of those who have held the sword before him. The blade was forged of a starstone, a half-demon Merlin seeking a warrior pure enough to endure its thirst. Null cares not of the shame that the predecessors brought, but he seeks the blade itself, and the sword wants to be found. The knight tries to pull his blade back from the foul beast, but as he does, both he and the blade once again fall to the earth. He shouts a war cry that is akin to a small child screaming, and that is when the fates would smile and send a beautiful maiden to his side. The knight asks with what manner does she have the ability to fly, and the woman introduces herself as Arrow, welcoming him to her home of Shanghai. Arrow has heard many tales of Black Knight's adventures, like how he was once an Avenger, but was kicked out because his sword makes him go all murdery and is kind of super crazy pants psycho. Dane tells her that he is on a quest, one sent to him by Tony Stark himself, and Arrow smiles, stating that she also happens to be on her way to see the same man. However, she couldn't possibly leave her home before vanquishing the terrible demons that are plaguing the area. Suddenly, a beast strikes, but it is not the knight who stops it, but a boy armed with a sword seemingly similar to the ebony blade. The young man is Lin Lai, who also happens to be on a quest, but not from Tony Stark. He also happens to know all about the Black Knight and his quality traits. As heir to the sword of Fu Chi, Lin sets out to bring down the one known as Chi Yu. Both Arrow and Lin do their best to keep the otherworldly creatures at bay, but the Black Knight knows that he is too much help. He holds his arm out, calling, commanding the ebony sword to return to his hand, because sometimes commanding it really shows the sword who's boss. The knight steadies his breathing and he focuses, and that's when the sword comes to him, but not the ebony blade. No, it is the sword of Fu Chi. Perplexed, the knight looks at the sword and Lin demands that his sword be returned. However, Dane knows that this is not an ordinary sword, and he will use it to fell Null and retrieve the ebony blade, which happens to be somewhere in the direction that he's pointing. Another beast attacks, and using the ancient sword, the knight strikes it down with one blow. Lin shouts his concern that a crazy psycho-American is not fit to wield such a sword, but the Black Knight tells him, nay, he is not a psycho. He should read the Reddit. All that dark stuff comes from the ebony blade. And so Dane swings his newly acquired sword to finish off the slithering creature, again and again and again. Arrow pleads with him to stop. The monster is already dead and he keeps stabbing it, as well as a car and a building. But it is not over. The slimy flesh liquefies, attempting to flee. The knight brings the sword down, but this time it's different. Null wanted him to strike it, for this sword too was also star-forged. Another world ender. Though this time, Null speaks and he can see into the knight's bloodline, for the knight knows not what he wields. The knight's bloodline did not contain those worthy with the purity that holds the blade. Merlin lied. The first knight, Sir Percy, was chosen for his weakness. An angry man, a depressive man, a man beset by voices. Their legacy was chosen so that the ebony blade would only be wielded by its mightiest potential, by those impure of heart. Two imperfect halves, two incomplete articles united to form a berserker in black. That is why he must have it. It belongs to him. Now open your eyes and see how pure you really are, Dane. The knight does just that to see the flames cast by the sword of Fu Chi, not only burning the wicked creatures, but also himself. The sword then returns to its rightful owner, however, the quest does not end. Arrow notices that Null himself has appeared as a giant manifestation of Chi-Yu. Null reaches for the ebony blade perched high up on the building, but this blade too returns to its owner. Only the Black Knight is wary of the blade's intentions. As the knight struggles with his own inner demons, the two recruits take arms and they attack. Lin carelessly comments that if that is what the Avengers have to offer, he wants no part of it. Arrow explains that the knight is just going through some stuff. It's just a different culture. It's not about being perfect, that's the goal, not the journey. Didn't Tony Stark say something about accepting your own flaws, then doing the right thing? The Black Knight hears these words, and here, at last, as unavoidable as 'tis unbearable, lies the ghastly truth the Black Knight already knew. He senses the darkness aslumber in his breast. He always knew that beneath the armor trembles a man swift to anger, a mind not given to grudges. He is a man. He is an imperfect man. Oh, pitiful knight, look upon thee, true heroes, champions of light. Could it be that they speak the truth? That the truest feat is not to vanquish thy demons, but to own them? Just then a beam is launched from the blade into Null's head. Null shouts, "How dare you turn the darkness against me? I am the darkness!" But now, with the power of the ebony blade flowing through him, the Black Knight lunges at the heart of the beast, killing it in one swift blow. Lin stands in awe. The Black Knight did it. He isn't just some super crazy pants psycho. He killed Null. Dane says nay, it was just an avatar. The real Null is still out there. Even the ebony blade won't be enough. Not on its own. He would like to thank them both. Their words struck true, and they are a credit to the, global heroing community? Or something. Arrow asks if he'll come to New York. Tony Stark's message said to go there. And the Black Knight then says, "Verily, let us be off to New York." As the lands of Wakanda are ravaged by the ever-growing scourge of the symbiote dragons, Black Panther flies above it all trying to formulate a plan. But there isn't anything that he can do. Not now, at least. Black Panther rockets into the ground, telling everyone to stealth. They must retreat for now. We cannot save the fallen, but by Bast's teeth, no more will fall. As the warriors rally around, Black Panther releases a blast, knocking all of the nearby symbiotes away, saving as many as he can. Back in Biranzana, Shuri looks over their defenses and sees that the outer shields have been breached in several locations and that the symbiotes are flooding in. They do not have the numbers to fight back this infection. Their best option is to gather as many survivors as they can and run. Okoye says that there are too many to just run, and then a voice tells Shuri that there is always another way, and Black Panther walks in. She hugs him but notices that he is alone. She asks him where is Storm, and after a short pause, he tells her, "Aurora is no longer a factor. Now, we will open up the prototype vault, number 14. Nothing in the others will be useful. Our people must be brought to the city shelters, protected from the invaders. You will lead the operation personally." Shuri asks if that's not a job for him. And Okoye says that they must stand and fight the creatures, an organized military response now, but Black Panther stops her. Shuri will protect the people. She will pilot the hand of the Bast. Shuri yells that they can't, but Black Panther walks off stating, "We have lost more than half of our forces getting here. The vibranium alloy armor isn't enough to keep the creature's infections at bay." A screen appears showing one of Null's dragons flying over a city, and Black Panther goes on stating, "The dragon is a plague storm. It transforms all animal life in its wake into the creatures invading Wakanda, who, in return, transform and kill all that they can. This is happening all over Africa, all over the world. This is Wakanda's fate if the enemy's progress cannot be stopped. The shield will not protect us. The invaders exploited a frequency variance in order to get in. Added power makes no difference. The shield can only slow them down, not stop them. There is no time for debates. You must do as I say. You must trust that I have a plan to save us. Trust in me." As Black Panther and Okoye leave, Shuri heads into the vaults, telling the computer that they will be opening up Vault 14. Begin preparations. She then puts on a necklace and sets down a small object and begins to chant. Over in Biran Bashanka, Cell yells to her warriors that they must form a wall. Protect the people! One of the warriors holds, stating that there are too many of them. How can they hope to hold them all? Shuri flies down with one of her dolls, stating that they will because they must, for they are Wakanda. But while everyone continues to hold back the swarm of symbiotes, Black Panther gets to work in his lab. Using the molecular structure of the aliens that Eddie Brock provided, he should be able to create something. However, the dragon in Biren Bashanga begins to rain down more of its goop onto Shuri's dolls, converting them. Black Panther radios to Okoye, asking if she's ready, and she tells him, yes, is it time? Black Panther says yes, and in a few seconds, the projection that is the hand of Bast bursts through the ground, biting into the dragon. Okoye says that she prays that this will be enough, but Black Panther continues to work, stating that the hand of Bast was built to kill the Phoenix. She is born to protect Wakanda. But while Okoye takes on the dragon, back in Black Panther's lab, the now infected Shuri breaks through the doors. She looks at her brother and demands him to see her, to see what he did to her. He gave her to Null. As Shuri lunges, Black Panther steps out of the way, firing a sonic blast, narrowly missing. Shuri asks if this is his final weapon, Claw's sonic emitter. Even if it did hit her, it's too small, too weak. Black Panther leaps out of the hole in the wall that he created, stating, I know. She follows him outside, grabbing him. Null is better than all of them. Null came before magic, before science, before life. Black Panther swipes at her to free himself, clawing his way up to one of the nearby statues, telling her, you are not my sister! You may be a powerful entity, but you do have vulnerabilities. She chases, screaming, Null will eat you, as he has eaten your beloved and your sister. Null will eat the world. Black Panther activates the emitter again, pointing it towards the sky, stating, I think not. Goodbye, Null. As the sonic blast hits the shield, it acts as an amplifier, releasing a shockwave powerful enough to rip the symbiotes off of everyone. The blast travels far and wide and is even powerful enough to pierce a hole in Null's dome surrounding the world. The sun begins to shine, and Shuri gets up asking if it worked. Is Wakanda? Black Panther helps her up, telling her, yes, Wakanda is forever. A week later, after Deadpool saved Elsa Bloodstone from the Bone Beast dimension, Deadpool explains to his roundish table that there are some bad things going on in the world, and it has to do with some nonsense that has nothing to do with us, but the world has been enveloped in some creepy black goo. It looks suspiciously like some Venom shenanigans, but I'm being told that it's a guy calling himself the King in Black, which apparently they let any jackass just call himself king these days. Ugh. Anyway, all this black goo, it's almost like we never left the stupid Bone Beast dimension. Am I right? Nightwolf asks what does any of this have to do with them, and Deadpool tells him, nothing. I'm just saying that I was just there. This book was covered in black goo for 3 issues. Here in the final issue of this series, and it's more black goo. The problem that we're facing is that we're not fancy schmancy New York, but we're really close to it. So if we're going to get caught in the worst crossfire ever, Jeff jumps up to reveal a rope on a drape, revealing all of Deadpool's monster cards. And Deadpool says, the bad guy seemingly forgot. We have an island full of freaking monsters. All we gotta do is pick the best. Everyone looks around and Nightwolf says, but we are the best. Deadpool shrugs, we could do better. This is a tie-in event, man. It's go big or go home. As Deadpool interviews many of the residents of Deadpoolopus, some of which are actually useful, some of which not so much, like Snowman, who only has one snow-related pun. He's obviously in. And with a carefully picked team that only has the addition of like 3 more than he already had, Deadpool sets off with his army of monsters. Before leaving, one of the citizens stomps him, stating that they have no idea what they're facing. This is not what you think. This is the end of days. And Deadpool dramatically yells, oh good! Glad to know that there's nothing to worry about. The monster preacher goes on telling him that this has all been prophesized, that it is the coming of a new age for monsters. Deadpool grabs the preacher, stating, and I deal with end of the world stuff daily. You're gonna have to try harder than that. The preacher then says that they should reconsider. The prophecy directly involves him. To complete his ascension, the great god monster must devour the monster king, which is currently you, Deadpool. Deadpool pauses for a moment. Wait, you want him to rise? Why even bother telling me? Unbelievable. Besides, this isn't some cult thing that we've been teasing. This is something to do with venoms and symbiotes and stuff. Read a comic, man! So 6.5 minutes later, Deadpool realizes that mistakes were clearly made. Fighting a giant symbiote dragon thing is not the smartest thing that he could have done. However, there is one good thing that came out of it. The snowman made a second pun. Before being eaten, he said, "Not cool." Deadpool tells everyone that they need to regroup, but during the fight, Jeff got infected. Deadpool says that it's going to be okay. They'll just help him, and ouch! Jeff chomps down on Deadpool's arm, and Elsa pulls him back, stating that they need to focus. They can't let the symbiote thing get a hold of him. What are we going to do, Deadpool? So Deadpool says that he knows. They're gonna cut this infected arm off. Always the stupid infections. I just grew this arm back. All right, time to regroup and do it again. Pose for another epic splash page. But at that moment, Jelby says that he knows that everyone is mad at him from before, but he thought he could help. See? Jelby holds up a bubble of himself with Jeff inside, perfectly contained. Deadpool asks if he's okay in there, and Jelby tells him he is, aside from being covered in a weird black goo. Deadpool stops for a moment and then tells everyone, "I have a new plan. Time for Plan X." So after another few minutes, everyone rides inside of a giant Jelby as they go to take on the symbiote dragon again. It's going to be one of those big kaiju versus another kaiju moments. Also, does anyone else find it funny that Zurgo is blasting us into the air with their giant butthole? It's like all of my dreams are coming true! Jelby punches the dragon, and as it backs closer to a perfectly placed sinkhole, Deadpool tells Zurgo, "Hit it!" Jelby bends over, rockets into the dragon as Zurgo blasts from his butt as hard as he can. And with one final punch, giant Jelby knocks the dragon into the sinkhole. Jelby walks up, opening up his mouth like a giant puck-shaped video game character, so Deadpool and Elsa could see, and Elsa asks, "What now? We have to plug the hole." Deadpool tells her that he didn't think that far ahead, but this all seems strangely familiar, and as a tendril reaches up, Deadpool says, "I have to tell you one last thing. It's the actual plan, so listen carefully." After whispering it into Elsa's ear, she says that she understands, and the two kiss. She begins to confess her love, and Deadpool is pulled into the pit. It is about to be eaten, but not by the giant lava dragon, by a giant symbiote dragon. They totally did not copy this in an issue previously. This is called slow build storytelling, but some things got canceled, and well, here we are. They made it look like they predicted this moment when they wrote that scene back when they didn't even know that they were going to be in a tie-in event. Pretty cool for Deadpool, isn't it? But as Deadpool goes on monologuing, Jelby begins to slurp up part of the symbiote and jump back in. So a few moments later, Jelby climbs back out of the pit, now with the symbiote dragon in his stomach locked away. Deadpool stumbles out of Jelby's foot, stating, "Great, that's taken care of. Now we need to go fix Jeff." Later, back at the monster castle, Elsa asks if this is the giant speaker. Deadpool tells them, "Yep. Now on my mark, mark!" The speaker suddenly blasts sonic waves, ripping the symbiote infection off, and Deadpool yells to cut it. Jeff jumps up, licking Deadpool's face, and Deadpool says that he is such a good boy. "Now someone put that blown-off symbiote into a baggie until we can get it inside of Jelby." Elsa pets Jeff, stating that that is the second time that he was eaten. Should probably take better care of himself. And Deadpool asks if they could just have one moment of peace. That's all he asks for. So Nightwolf then says that there's a large gathering in the throne room. Deadpool asks if it's to celebrate their big win, to shower them in praise and shiny gifts. And Nightwolf tells him actually it's mostly complaints about property damage. Also, the preacher wanted to let you know that there was a mistake with their calculations about the end days. It seems the monster god is coming in 2022. Deadpool stops. "Great, pencil me in. I just literally saved the world. Can't people just be happy? Where are my gifts?" As the snow falls all over New York, Spider-Man takes a moment to catch his breath after narrowly getting away from one of Knowles' symbiote dragons. When he was younger, he wanted to win the Nobel Prize. He liked science, and the best scientists win Nobel Prizes. It wasn't until later that he learned that Alfred Nobel set up the Nobel Prize to atone for his inventions, most notably dynamite, which folks made mobs out of. The story goes, Alfred opened up the newspaper one day and saw his own obituary there, printed by mistake. It read, "The Merchant of Death is dead." Nobel was a great scientist and he understood guilt, and Spider-Man, he's full of guilt, because this is all his fault. Ever since he brought that thing back with him, he brought Venom, a symbiote, an alien being from a war across the galaxy. Ever since, it all went wrong. Every death it has caused has been on him. Spider-Man slams his fist into the side of the wall, thinking back to all the things that Venom did, creating carnage and all the others that came out of that, and now the world is ending and it all comes back to him, bringing the symbiote to Earth all those years ago. patient 0 of a global infection and now Dylan Brock? But before Spider-Man could wallow in his self-pity, something flies by holding a person and he quickly puts back on his torn mask, following it. With one good swing, he leaps through the air, punching the creature, releasing the old woman. The creature quickly shifts back into a human form, asking, Spider-Man? Spider-Man webs the two of them from falling, asking, Reptile? Oh no. Reptile asks, what the heck, man? Spider-Man tells him, I thought you were a dragon. Reptile yells, I was a pterodactyl. I was helping someone get to safety. The foreign woman yells, Spider-Man, threat, menace. But as Spider-Man helps her down, he asks, why aren't you at the Avengers Academy in California? Reptile tells him, you know that they closed that like years ago, man. As Spider-Man tells him, yeah, I knew that. This is all my fault, Spider-Man. This causes Spider-Man to pause for a moment. Wait, what? And Reptile smiles. You're my inspiration, you know, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, always there for the little guy. Look, one thing I learned from Dr. Pym was that you have to know your own capabilities, and those giant things, I can't handle them. I wouldn't be any good. I'm just a kid who could turn into dinosaurs. But I learned from you that there are people out there who need help. That's Mrs. Volkov. She needs to get back home, and I'm gonna make sure she gets there okay, because that's what Spider-Man would do. Spider-Man thinks to himself that if all of Pym's kids turned out like this, there's nothing he can do for Eddie, for Dylan, but this kid? The Avengers had better watch out for their jobs. Spider-Man then asks, you want some help? As the two begin to make their way through the city, Reptile tells him, this is so cool! It's Reptile and Spidey saving the day. But are you sure you don't have anywhere else more important to be? Spider-Man tells him, it's like you said, not your capabilities. And this is something I can help with. So Mrs. Volkov, where are we taking you? She doesn't respond, and Reptile tells him, oh, she's like a big Daily Bugle fan from back in the day. Anyway, there's another reason I could use your help. Where is Staten Island? Spider-Man stops. Staten? We're going to Staten? Do you know how far that is from here? Reptile tells him, look, I'm from Nevada. I don't know New York. After sighing, Spider-Man says, it's gonna be a hike, like 5 miles over open water. And after webbing up some of the incoming dragons, the two begin to fly over the ocean. Spider-Man points forward, stating, just keep going this way. Follow that ferry up ahead with its lights on. But that's it. If the light is attracting them, while in complete darkness, it'll act like a beacon. And the thing with beacons is that it attracts all kinds of things, like more symbiote dragons. Reptile asks him, so what do we do? And though Spider-Man knows that they can't possibly fight it, he says they have to fight it. But don't worry. He has an idea. He jumps down onto the boat, stating that he is here to help. He has a friend out there that could turn into dinosaurs. The captain asks, do you not see the size of that thing? Yeah, I do. But they have their land dinosaurs and their dinosaurs in the sky. Some of the biggest and meanest ones lived in the water. Reptile jumps out of the water as a giant sea creature, biting down on the dragon, bringing it with him underwater. Spider-Man then says, okay, we don't have much time. The only way we can kill those things is with light and electricity. Do you have any lasers on board? Anything like that? The captain pauses, thinking about that question. No. Spider-Man says, then you better have some serious generators on this tub. The captain tells him that it's an Olus-class ferry, brand new. They run 4 EMD 12710 diesel engines. Their emergency generator alone puts out 400,000 kilowatts. You want juice? We got juice, Spider-Man. The two begin to get things ready, with some of the passengers asking what is he planning? What can he do? Where's Captain Marvel? Where's Thor? Spider-Man's anxiety begins to spike. It's all his fault. Mrs. Volkov tells everyone to just shut up. This Spider-Man wants to help, which is shocking. I know. Always I think he is a threat. He is a menace. But he helped me. And when he see you, your ship and your monster, he could have said, oh, not Spider-Man's problem. It's problem for Captain Marvel or blonde pretty man Thor. Nothing Spider-Man can do. Oh well. He could go on, save one person and sleep good night. But he told polite dinosaur boy that you need our help. Help us. So let him. With that, the passengers begin to get everything together while Reptile continues his fight below in the ocean. Once they're down, Spider-Man holds up a makeshift harpoon connected to the generator, stating, all right, it's just me and the big guy. Let's do our own Moby Dick routine. From hell's heart, I stab at thee. Spider-Man leaps into the air, not nervous, not shaking, not full of anxiety, and he slams the harpoon into the dragon's mouth. As the generators kick on, they send out an unimaginable amount of electricity into the dragon, causing it to explode, flinging him back off the ship. Spider-Man asks, you gotta be kidding me. I went toe to toe, but Reptile stops him. You went more like wing to flipper. Mrs. Volkov pats Reptile, telling him, I'm glad you're not dead, polite dinosaur boy. I think I will take the ferry the rest of the way home. The flying, not so good for me. Reptile laughs. Of course, whatever you want. And the two look out into the ocean, and Reptile tells Spider-Man that they did it. They got Mrs. Volkov home. They helped one person, and they ended up saving a whole boat of people. So, what do we do now? Spider-Man laughs. Are you new? We do it all over again. Maybe we can't beat up the alien space god. There are still people out there who need help tonight. You up for it? And Reptile tells him, oh yeah! The sky is black as the symbiote dragon horde flies through it. The sun is gone, shrouded from the earth by Null's orb of symbiotes. This is definitely some stupid space shit. Well, this hell is better than that hell tonight. The Night Flyer whispers as he looks up into the sky from the jail cell that he currently finds himself in. The group of criminals look up as a group of guards carry in a man who is fighting like hell. Unhand me! I defended myself! Conan bellows to the guards. One points a nightstick at him, telling the barbarian that he'll do hard time for assaulting a police officer. How can a dog be an officer of the guard? Besides, I let it live! And this island is a palace compared to some of the dungeons I've escaped from. Deadpool walks up next to the guard, apparently in the same jail cell. A jury will find this man guilty, especially since I'm representing him, Deadpool says with a thumbs up, pocketing the keys that he pulled off the guard when he wasn't looking. Shut up, Deadpool, the guard snarls as he swings his club, snapping the merc's wrist. My bait in hand! I guess it'll be a while before I go fishing again. Deadpool muses as he flops his wrist around. The guard tells everyone to shut up and storms out of the cell. And after he leaves, Conan smiles at Deadpool, remarking that he noticed that he stole the keys. I am Conan. Deadpool nods, snapping his wrist back into place. Call me Deadpool, he says as his wrist heals. But Deadpool looks down and realizes that he stole the guard's personal keys, not the keys to the cell. Conan looks at him in shock for a moment, mentioning that he's seen Logan do the same thing with his wounds. Logan? There's a name I only hear when he needs sales. He doesn't return my calls these days. Came down with a case of the Krakoa-itis, Deadpool says with a turn of his head. You know the man? I'd like to speak to him. I'd like to get my own set of sneak blades. Conan puts his arm around Deadpool and tells him that they need to escape. Your entire body can heal quickly from injury. Like Logan? Conan asks. Better than Logan. Deadpool confirms. So Conan smiles, slamming the merc's head against the bars. Perfect, I'll be as swift as I can. His muscles flex as he begins to push Deadpool's body through the small space between the bars, yelling for him to be reborn into freedom. But even Deadpool gets stuck. Hold fast, I'm going to kick it through the other side. Conan yells, slamming his boots against the bloody mess of Deadpool, while the other prisoners look in shock and revulsion. Finally, a mass of blood and organs inside of a suit, Deadpool has reached the other side of the bars. Why shouldn't I leave you? He asks as his body begins to put itself back together. If you do, you're not half the man that Logan is. Conan growls, and Wade looks at him for a moment. You certainly know which buttons to push. He snaps. The guards enter the room, slipping on Deadpool's entrails in blood. Wade whirls, elbowing the guard in the head, knocking him out. He quickly tosses Conan the cell keys, and inside, the Night Flyer steps forward, asking the barbarian to take him along. I will open up the door, then you will make your own way, Conan says simply. But the Night Flyer introduces himself, offering Conan a safe place to hide and a possible score. If you don't like what I'm selling, you can bounce on your own way. I'm leaving. If you wish to follow, that is of your own business. If I wish to listen to this tale of treasure, that is my business, Conan tells him as he nods to the door. 7 minutes later, the trio have made it to the evidence locker and are beating up gods. Oh, I was wondering where these went. I left these here probably like 2 arrests ago. Deadpool notes as he pulls out 2 of his swords and sheaths them on his back. These seem like fine weapons. I'm leaving this jail richer than when I entered, Conan tells the group as he grabs a machete and a shotgun. As Night Flyer soars overhead, Conan and Deadpool ride 2 horses through the gate and into the rainy night. Deadpool looks down at his horse, apologizing because he knows that the horse will most likely be eaten by a dragon. Almost as if on cue, one of the dragons swooped down out of the sky, attacking the horse that Conan's riding on. Yep, that pony didn't last 50 yards. Deadpool notes as he opens fire. With a yell, Conan is knocked from the bridge, plummeting to the bay below, but Night Flyer swoops down to grab him. My thanks! Conan yells as he is dropped back onto the bridge, and without hesitation, he raises the machete, charging at the dragon. Come, beast, meet your end! He yells as he slashes at it, but the cut does nothing and the monster looks at him. Do you remember? It growls, and Conan is shocked as the monster lashes at him with its tongue. The tendrils beginning to wrap around his body as he fires his shotgun, trying to free himself. The voice fills his mind, and suddenly he is in the snowy mountains of a Chimaria. and before him is a sword made of black goo. The voice calls to him, reminding him that the symbiote saved him in the battle against Kulon Goth. He reaches for the blade. In the real world, the Night Flyer begins to fly away as he watches Conan being cocooned. This is kind of like outside the Night Flyer's strike zone, he notes. And nearby, Deadpool continues to fire at the approaching dragons. Hey, I got my own problems here, and I'm all out of ponies, he screams. You dare threaten me, Wraith! Conan bellows as he holds the symbiotic sword in his hand. The snow falls around them in the ancient Chimeria, but the hilt of the sword twists to the shape of a creature's head. I am not what I once was, it explains, and the symbiote twists as it speaks to Conan's mind, showing him its history. It fell to the earth long ago and was taken by a merchant who would use the living ooze to draw potential customers in. Eventually, the symbiote was purchased by a sorcerer supreme named Macree Ra. The sorcerer showed the symbiote kindness, wishing to learn its history. It was first bonded to the sorcerer's cat, becoming a familiar of sorts. Yet this would not last. Macree Ra was killed by Kulon Goth, who had come for his power. The evil wizard attempted to devour the symbiote, as he had done with Macree Ra, but eventually Goth gave up and instead trapped the symbiote. The symbiote was tortured for over 1,000 years until Conan eventually freed it in the city of Sickles. Conan rears back from the images, the symbiote shifting and floating before him in cold winds of Chimeria. I live only to slay Kulon Goth. When it is done, so am I. If you wield me, you will never be harmed. Let us kill the mad wizard together, the symbiote offers him. Conan nods and holds up the sword, the symbiotic weapon bonding with him. We are partners until the deed is done. Meanwhile, back in the present day, Conan pulls himself free of the symbiotic cocoon, and he turns to find Deadpool firing his pistols into the monsters while Night Flyer stands nearby. Oh man, welcome back. Thought you croaked for sure, Night Flyer tells him. Conan turns to the approaching symbiote dragons, wielding his new black blade. Back, Wraiths! Let your master plunder what he will. We care not. Our prize is elsewhere. Or stay and face me and die. The dragons hiss before turning and flying away from Conan. Looks like your new sword has some sway over those things. Let's keep moving. I don't think we're clear of Riker's snipers yet. Deadpool tells his companions, and as if on cue, a sniper shot echoes over the darkness-leaden bridge. Potatoes! Deadpool grunts as the round goes through his head. Conan reaches down, picking up the merc and slinging him onto his back. More rounds pepper Deadpool as the group retreats. Conan throws his friend onto the back of the police horse as they ride into the darkness. I know a place that is closer than the Flophouse. Follow me, Night Flyer calls. 30 minutes later, the trio sits at the bar with no name. Excuse me, does the horse need to be in here, or can I lead him out back? The bartender asks, but Night Flyer motions to the horse, who's enjoying a bucket of feed. The cops are looking for him, Mitch. He stays where he is, the man says. Conan nods as he takes a drink of his beer, asking Night Flyer about their score. The man turns, speaking to his lawyer boyfriend who had just walked in. The two greet each other, and the lawyer hands Night Flyer a small box that the villain had stashed in their freezer. Deadpool begins to pull himself up from the bar, removing his mask, taking a swig of the beer that he finds in front of him. I can feel my horrible body again. How awful, Deadpool gasps. Night Flyer comes over, telling the pair that he got what they needed to make a quick and quiet entrance to their score. A short time later, the trio stand outside a building while the city is covered in symbiotic goo around them. Night Flyer motions to the building. My old man did some legal work for them back in the day, but the owners abandoned this place and now they live in the South Pacific, he tells them, and Deadpool looks up shocked at what he sees. Wait, this is the place you want to rob? The Hellfire Club? He shouts, and Conan looks over the gate, questioning whether the Hellfire Club was rich. Oh, disgustingly rich! But some of them shoot lasers out of their eyes! Others shoot stuff out of other places! Whose thumb is that? Deadpool questions as Night Flyer pulls a thumb out of the box he was given and places it on the DNA pad. Don't worry about it. I didn't think you'd be this much of a whiner. Night Flyer notes as the door chimes and unlocks. The doors open up and the trio step inside. Gentlemen, welcome to the Hellfire Club. Night Flyer whispers. It's not the same without the mutants kissing each other and the servants from Eyes Wide Shut. Deadpool sighs and the trio moves through the darkness, quickly finding the bags of cash that Night Flyer said would be there. God, you can smell the cash through those bags. Deadpool gasps at all the money, with Conan looking at the bags, disgust on his face. I despise your flimsy paper. Coin ought to be metal, he says, and he turns as the three mutants suddenly come through the Krakoan gate. Did we take the wrong gate? Callisto asks Iceman. No, we're in the right place. More than I could say for them, Bobby tells her. Bishop pulls out his pistol. You should know better than to break into here, Deadpool. Deadpool draws his own blade as Callisto pulls out her daggers. We can do that dance. I'll have my steel and your swords that Ant-Man shrunk. He tells her, shush! Callisto snaps as she slashes Deadpool across the throat. Conan grabs his friend as he begins to drop, but Bishop aims his pistol, telling them to leave. We will not be threatened! Conan snarls as he turns, throwing Deadpool's body at the trio of mutants. Iceman turns, freezing Nightflyer in place, the villain throwing a grenade, temporarily stunning the trio. But Deadpool stumbles back to his feet, starting a fight with Bishop, managing to throw him back through the gate. Deadpool then turns, but Callisto's dagger has stabbed him in the back of the head. I wish you were a mutant, so you could go to the hole, she snaps. But Conan is there, punching her hard in the jaw. Bobby turns, hitting the Chimerian with a blast of ice. Feel what you're up against, moron! Bobby yells, and Conan continues forth through the icy blast. Feels like home. It warms my heart in this weak and pathetic world that there are still warriors that descended from Ymir. Conan snarls as the symbiote begins to form around his arm. Now tell the frost giant that I'll see him in hell! Conan bellows as he swings the symbiote weapon, shattering Iceman through the stomach. As the steam rises and Conan looks down at the pile of shattered ice that he just smashed, Iceman says that humans are so quick to murder them. Imagine if they treated humans like this. Conan tells him that he is no man. Iceman pulls himself back together, telling him, no, you're not. When I was a kid, I was presented as a snowman. I didn't want to scare anyone, but those days are long gone. Nightflyer calls out that it's time for everyone to go. Let's move! But just before Nightflyer could take off, a portal from Krakoa opens, and Bishop comes out shooting, stating that he was pissed off and having a bad night before he got to New York, and they're not making it any better. As Nightflyer's duffel bags of cash burst open, Bishop tells him that working with Deadpool will get him murked quick. Bad first impression. As Conan winds up to swing his symbiote hammer, he tells Iceman that he doesn't need to pull punches, and Iceman blasts him away with snow, telling him, I won't. Callisto spits out some blood while sitting on Deadpool, telling him that she loves a good scrap as much as the next person, but they're on the clock. You going to behave, Deadpool? Deadpool thinks for a moment and tells her, I don't think anyone has ever asked me that. As Bishop gets close, he tells Nightflyer that his first mistake was throwing hands with them. Second was reaching for mutant money. You want some? You gotta earn it. Nightflyer asks if they're going to hire them and not kill them, and Bishop says, maybe. Let's take a walk. As everyone settles down from the inevitable two superhero teams fighting situation, Bishop explains that Null has invaded Earth and captured Storm and Cyclops. Those two are their mission. For the time being, he's leading the team. They're short-handed, so hiring some swords for the night isn't out of the question. Null's got the Empire State Building staked out as his beachhead, so that's where we're gonna find Storm and Cyclops. Nightflyer says that it sounds like a plan if only they could convince Conan to, but Conan says, I'll do it. Only if by the end of this night I can have words with Logan. Iceman tells him that they have a deal, and Nightflyer says that they will be needing a couple of those duffels that they didn't shoot up. Callisto says that mutant money grows on trees. It's Bishop's call. Bishop nods, stating, well, now that we have some wings, we have a distraction that we didn't have before. So a few moments later, Nightflyer takes off into the sky to draw the attention of the dragons away while everyone else makes their way up Empire State Building. As Bishop thought, Cyclops is waiting at the top, and Iceman yells out, you can fight this! You have to remember, Scott! Cyclops starts hitting him with an optic blast, telling him, there is only Null! But while focusing on the X-Men, Conan creates a large, solid fist, cracking Cyclops, telling him to yield. Before they all move in, Callisto looks up into the clouds, asking, where is Storm? Deadpool tells her, she's up there somewhere. And Callisto quickly kicks him away, shouting, you are so stupid, you're holding lightning rods. Just as Deadpool is pushed away, lightning strikes, burning him where he stands. Null, through Storm, tells them all, these are my new avatars, and this one is the most powerful. Bishop yells for her to try and fight it, but Cyclops hits him with a blast, but purposely misses to knock him away. Bishop shouts for him to hit him. Full blast! Do it! Null, through Cyclops, says that this vessel knows what he can do. I won't be giving you any energy to reflect back, so instead, I'll give it to your friends! Cyclops turns, tearing apart the ground with his optic blast aimed at Deadpool and Callisto, causing the two to fall off the ledge. Conan runs over, managing to grab Callisto, but as Deadpool continues to fall, he sighs, stating, damn it! Conan shouts to Deadpool, "When I am king, you may play the fool!" And Deadpool yells back, "Do not threaten me with a good time, Conan!" But now, with the group spread out, Bishop tells everyone to fall in. Null is keeping their targets separated. And as the dragons come back, Conan tells Iceman that they will not simply let them withdraw. "Man of Ice, listen well. You are living a lie. You are no man at all, but you behave as though you are one. You are a frost giant. If we cannot safely leap to the ground, then bring the ground to us." Iceman laughs. "Haha, hell yeah, everyone follow me." As Iceman creates an ice bridge to the ground, Conan continues telling him that this world of man has forgotten its gods. This world is ruled by false gods, and the vanity pocket mirrors they stare into all day, and the coin that is worshipped by most. And now I find that even the gods have forgotten themselves. Where I'm from, no man has traveled beyond the tundras of Nordheim. If there were songs of that place before Ymir, they are long forgotten. You may not know him, but you are of him. You have the blood of frost giants in your veins. Fight like it, a man of ice. Iceman stands there for a moment once everyone gets off the bridge, and Bishop tells him that they will get out of here together, but Iceman tells him, "No need. Go." As everyone leaves, Iceman turns to the oncoming horde, gathering all of his strength, creating ice spikes large enough to skewer the dragons and hold them in place. After that, he concentrates, growing in size, taking on the black mass of mangled dragons himself, allowing the safe retreat of everyone. Later, at the old Hellfire Club, Deadpool walks out wearing some of Emma Frost's old outfits, stating, "I cannot believe that this is the only clothes that I could find." Nightflyer says that he is sorry that they didn't succeed, but he would still like to be paid for honest work. Callisto tells him one duffel bag, and Nightflyer grabs it, stating, "It was nice working with you. Name is Nightflyer. You can find me at the No Name." As he and Deadpool leave, Bishop tells Conan that he can take a bag and go. But Conan tells him, "I do not want your purse." Another voice says, "That's your problem." Wolverine steps out of the shadows, stating, "You wanted me? You got me. Make it quick." Conan stands up, setting a glass down, stating, "Out of respect, I wanted to let you know that this is my castle now. I know it was formerly controlled by the mutants, but tell anyone upset about this what I am capable of, and tell them to give me a wide berth." Wolverine grabs his glass, asking, "You brought me here to broker a real estate deal?" Conan tells him, "No. The deal is done. This castle suits me, and I am its new king." Wolverine laughs. "It's the queens you're gonna have to watch out for. I admire the stones. I'll give word that I have a friend in this old place. A lot of bad stuff happened here. Have fun while you can." Conan holds up his bottle, telling him, "I shall. And when your war with the Frost Giant is completed, I will make sure that there is something cold from the casks to warm you up." The doors blast inward and the thieves move fast. They grab the bags of money, shield black funds that are untraceable and used for funding operations around the globe. They load the cash into their Jeep and they drive right out of the underground tunnels that S.H.I.E.L.D. has built beneath the city. They haul ass throughout the underground and they don't even notice the beautiful woman dangling from the ceiling, keeping pace with their Jeep. Felicia Hardy smiles as she glances up at her crew driving the Spider-Mobile. He wasn't even using it. It was just sitting around. She swings in low, preparing to hijack the Jeep and steal the money that the crew has already stolen. But suddenly the tunnel collapses over their heads as a massive symbiote dragon cracks through the ceiling. Black Cat is tossed aside, knocked unconscious from her fall. And as she finally opens up her eyes, she sees Doc and Bruno leaning over her, concern on their faces. "What happened?" she groggily asks. "Some kind of ghoul monster, boss. Smashed through the ceiling and trashed the mark, then took off," Bruno tells her. He nods to the giant hole and reminds her about the evac order that had come through. Felicia nods, telling her crew to take the buggy back to Jersey. They then yell out for her. She leaps out of the hole and into the city. "Someone or something is messing up my job, and I don't let anyone do that without getting as much as a black eye or a bloody nose," she calls back to them. As she swings throughout the city, she's shocked by the destruction and the sheer number of symbiote dragons that are flying around, and she lands quickly amongst the group of heroes that are fighting back. "Get those civilians to the Quinjet! Push back the symbiotes! I don't care how you do it!" Captain America shouts, and Black Cat lands behind him, not sure if he even knows who she is. You're Black Cat, Felicia Hardy. Glad you came. We need every hand that we can get if we're going to turn this around, Cap shouts at her as he catches his shield on the return. Black Cat nods, leaping into the fight to protect the civilians. We're going to turn this around, right? She asks as she slashes with her claws, and Cap nods, telling her that they have the Sorcerer Supreme and the X-Men on their side. We have to trust them to hold up their end, so that folks like us can get the civilians to safety, he tells her. But before his eyes, the symbiote dragons begin to swarm Doctor Strange. It is too much for the Sorcerer. In a matter of seconds, he's enveloped by a symbiote bubble. Events happened fast after that. The Dark God Null appeared. The Century arrived and hope was renewed, but only within a few moments, the godlike being was torn in half and the heroes fell. In Jersey, Felicia finishes telling her crew how it went down. And I got away. I always get away, she whispers, nodding to them. She knows that they're just thieves and this is some cosmic level stuff. But I meant what I said earlier. Whatever this thing is, I do fully intend to give it a bloody nose, she says. And with those words, she looks up at Dr. Steve inside of the headquarters of Alchemex. The man is an expert on symbiotes. She looks at him, asking if he's part of the crew now. We need you, Steve. We're gonna go out there and give this Null guy a black eye by running a job on him, she tells him. He leans forward. What could you possibly steal from him? Memories of Cap being swallowed by the symbiotes flash before Felicia's eyes. He turns to her, telling her to get away. Captain America himself told Felicia to keep fighting. That's an order! Fall back, regroup, and then find a way to break me out! Cap shouted at her as she ran away. In Alchemex, Felicia nods, standing up. Like I said, we're thieves, not cosmic beings. And that's why we're gonna steal one. She tells Steve as she turns to the rest of the crew. We're gonna steal Doctor Strange. Back inside of the city, Felicia looks through her binos and sees the orb that they have Doctor Strange trapped in. I guess we're not getting any younger. Saddle up, boys. Let's hope we live long enough to get older, she tells the crew. 2 hours ago at Alchemex, Steve still believed that they were going to try their plan. But Felicia smiled, running down the list of super people that she had recently stolen from. What can you do equipment-wise? She asked after she silenced their arguments, and Steve nods, pulling out the metallic orbs, placing them on the table. He explains that when Brock came to him with a warning of the coming invasion, he created 2 anti-venom suits in rapid deployment modules. He explains that the suits should repel the symbiotes, but they will only last for a few moments. I don't know how you find Doctor Strange in all of that mess, he tells her. Felicia thinks about it for a moment and then comes up with an idea. But Boris, you'll have to call up that friend of yours that you think we all don't know about, she tells him with a smile. Now she stands on the edge of the building. The ghost hound, Bats, is strapped to her chest. Oh boy, back on the crew! Bats shouts with a wag of his spectral tail. Welcome back, baby. Sorry if I got you in trouble last time, she smiles at the dog. We'll call it square when you get me back. Bats nods, and she nods to the dog, explaining that she'll get them to the orb and then Bats will lead them to Strange. She looks down at the chunk of wrapped wood in her hand, questioning whether it will power up the sorcerer. I think so. He used it to clock Loki one time, Bats tells her. Good enough for me, she says with a smile, and heads back over to her crew, smiling at the ride that they took from Alchemex. You know, I've always wanted to fly one of these. Moments later, Black Cat is flying over the city on an old goblin glider. Bats the ghost hound howling from her chest, and they leap off of the orb with Felicia activating the anti-venom suit. As she plummets down towards the globe, she lands inside, allowing her anti-venom suit to take control and breathe for her. A moment later, Bats appears beside her. I found him! Follow me! The glowing dog shouts. She keeps swimming, pushing through on the ghost dog's trail until finally she sees him, Doctor Strange. You better be worth the faith that Captain America put in you, Doc, Felicia whispers as she moves closer. She activates the second suit, allowing it to wrap around the Sorcerer Supreme and protect him, but the symbiotes, they begin to attack, feeling the 2 of them escaping. Black Cat manages to push out, pulling Strange with her. Yo, taxi! She shouts as they fall to the city below, and Boris hooks her as the crew dives to the nearest building in the Spider-Mobile. She flips him into the car, yelling for the Doctor of Destruction to wake up the Sorcerer. Bruno, time to show these alien jerks how we drive on Earth, she shouts with a smile. As the Spider-Mobile continues to evade the dragons, Felicia throws a batch of grenades back at them, slowing down some of them. Bruno keeps driving, jumping the supercar across from building to building. Doc, I told you to wake him up, she shouts over her shoulder. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a blowing things up doctor, Boris shouts, and the dragons hit them again, tossing the car. The car leaps through the air again, but this time the dragons manage to destroy one of the wheels. The car lands hard, bouncing, until finally it comes to a stop. The car is dead and Felicia looks up at the approaching horde of symbiote dragons. Boys, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not looking good, she sighs. She looks down at the chunk of wood in her hands, sighing that they never got to see Strange use it. He pulls free the cloth, her hand caressing the wood. She knows their weapons won't work on the dragons. She knows that they only have one chance and that this is probably the end. Bats, where did you say this thing was from? Asgard. The ghost dog woofs. Energy cracks all around them as the piece of wood floats into the sky and a bolt of lightning strikes. Black Cat is now transformed into a being of magic. Oh, I see, she whispers. Felicia looks around, finding herself in a chamber of endless black. Well, I guess that didn't work, so I died? She whispers, and looking around, she's startled to see the Black Fox standing before her. Nothing so dramatic, he tells her as he straightens his suit. The man explains that he's not really the Black Fox, but felt that this image would be easier for Felicia to understand. Who the hell are you and where are my guys? She questions, and the Black Fox explains that he is magic. Old magic, wild magic. She turns to him, questioning what is happening outside of her mind. In reality, I won't lie to you, it's looking bad, the Black Fox tells her. And outside, Felicia is rising up into the sky, energy crackling around her as the dragons draw near. But inside her mind, she shouts at the old man that she needs to get back. Not until you've heard what I had to say. In taking the fragment of Yggdrasil, you've gripped a live wire, and through that live wire runs magic. He tells her as he begins to walk down some of the stairs. I'll bite. So what does magic want with me? She asks as she follows him, and he nods, explaining that he wants her to say yes, that he wants to be free. To do that, I require a conduit, one that can provide consent, he tells her. The floor cracks, the smoke rises as magic offers her unbridled power. Talk is cheap, and I have expensive tastes, so give me a taste, she tells him. What do you have in mind? Magic asks. And she nods, telling him that she wants to punish the dragons that are attacking her and her crew. Outside, her eyes go wide. I'm back, boys! She shouts, launching herself at the dragons, throwing wild magic at them, cutting them in half. But in her mind, Felicia is sitting on a couch while Black Fox sips champagne. The images of the battle flashing across a TV screen in front of them. Tell me, Felicia, when was the first time you felt powerless? The magic asks her. The images on the screen change and Felicia is a little girl crying as her mother tells her that her father died, but he didn't. He was really going to jail. I was fine. I lived, and I got him out of jail so that he could die in his own bed, she tells Magic as she turns from the TV, more images of her life flashing before her eyes. Outside, God Mode Felicia continues to fight, reveling in her power. Is that all you've got? She shouts as the magic is swirling around her. Well, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I was afraid she might explode. Bats tells the crew as they all look on in fear. Strange begins to stir, shocked by what he sees when his eyes open. His eyes widen further as Bats quickly explains how they got into the situation. Black Fox continues to lead Felicia down the hallways of her life, paintings on the walls showing key moments where she felt weak or simply needed more power. Outside, Strange looks at the crew, telling them that everything is extremely bad. She's channeling the raw energy of creation, which is utterly amoral and as destructive as a hurricane. As an atomic bomb, she must put it down on her own accord before she is overwhelmed. And if she is overwhelmed, we will have created a danger far worse than what we were fighting before. Strange explains to the crew. The only one that can stop her, though, is herself. Felicia and Fox are sitting on the bench now, and before them is another painting of Black Cat being attacked by Venom, but she finally turns to the wild magic. Enough of this trauma exhibition. You're just trying to get me to say yes. Quit showing me the dudes who beat me up. You can't break me down. Suddenly, she is standing on a stage of a game show, a crowd oohing and awing at her. The lady knows what she wants, so let's show her what she can have, Black Fox says, channeling the best game show host. First off, the total annihilation of your enemies, he announces with the first door moving, showing Black Cat with ultimate power and her enemies falling before her. Oh, yes, Felicia claps. But that isn't enough. What do you get, the girl who has everything? Why? Everything, of course! Black Fox shouts, and the next door opens, showing Black Cat showered in jewels, surrounded by people bowing to her as she wields the Infinity Gauntlet. Father and mother standing nearby, and she gasps at the image. But surely we can do better than that! Love? Everything you've broken healed? Every lover who left you, return to your side. Black Fox shouts, with the third door opening, seeing Felicia standing on a throne surrounded by all of those who love her. But anger fills her eyes. How dare you? She snaps, reaching out, grabbing Magic by the throat. Outside, she begins to lash out blindly with her godlike powers. This is the moment that decides it. Strange shouts at the others. Inside, Magic is confused. I don't understand. I've offered you everything. Do you really think that I would make someone love me? With magic? She snaps as she slashes him across the throat. Outside, Felicia releases the shard of the World Tree, falling to the earth. Crew rush to her side as Dr. Strange picks up the piece of magic. I don't believe it. What did it offer you? Strange asks her. Everything. More than my soul could take. Not without becoming someone I couldn't bear being. She explains as she struggles to her feet. But they look up, seeing more of the dragons closing in. Hey, use your juice to send my boys somewhere safe, Black Cat says to Strange, and in a flash of magic, the crew is teleported away, and Strange powers up Felicia's claws. Are you ready? As I'm going to be. Let's do this, baby, she shouts with a smile. Late night in New York, a man's screams can be heard as he is attacked by some of Null's symbiotes. Danny Moonstar's mutant powers tell her who this frightened man is. His name is Seth, and his first fears were born in the basement of his grandmother's house. If she can reach him, she could see the night that he spent there. Lost, alone, locked inside, surrounded by darkness that it was so hard to breathe. That was before Null. Now she is saving him from another type of darkness. Danny catches up to Seth as she fires arrows into the creatures, and then tells him and the other civilians to hurry and get to the station. She'll hold them off as long as she can. Danny normally isn't scared, but these things are terrifying. She feels her spear hit them and doesn't seem to hurt them. She tried to reach them, but she only sees a collective. Endless minds connected as one to a hive, and she can't tell what they are or what they fear. But whatever it is, it's here. Meanwhile, over in Valhalla, Jane Foster and Brunhild watch the Valkyrie with no name, and Jane says that she is afraid that she's going to need this one's help for what's about to come. Brunhild states that their sister has been imprisoned for centuries, surrounded by death, and now she finds out that all of her friends are also dead. She must learn to remember life before they can expect her to fight for it. Jane asks, what should she do then? The Headless Celestial has Sentry and countless others. She doesn't even know what it really is, let alone how to fight a Headless Celestial. Brunhild explains that to understand it, they will have to go back to the birth of the universe, to the birth of life itself. With it came the first death, a Celestial, murdered by Null, the god of death, who sliced its head off for daring to bring light into his precious void. Null was banished for the crime, taking refuge in the decapitated head, and then he used its cosmic energies to forge the Necro Sword. But the body was forgotten, and in it, the infantile, fragmented soul of the Celestial was trapped, drifting through space and time. It did what Celestials do. It created a world within itself, a world of the dead. And then the Valkyrie with no name says that that is a prison. It does not belong to any pantheon. It's a spiritually bankrupt thing. Brunhild tells her yes, but it's bound to the Necrosword and by extension to Null. It stays in the in-between, never far from the sword that shares its essence. It feeds energy to the Necrosword, and in return, it feasts on the dead souls left in the wake of the symbiote god. There are two battles being fought right now, one in life and one in the after. Neither can be won with the connection intact. They must sever it. Valkyrie with no name tells her that it can't be done, but Brunhild states that it can. But first, old friend, you should go and get your axe back. As Jane gets their mounts ready, Brunhild follows, telling the Valkyrie with no name to make sure and come back this time. They never stopped looking for her. The Valkyrie states that they thought that she was lost, and Brunhild says, well, after Ulta died, she was so heartbroken that no one blamed her. The Valkyrie then says that Ulta was with her. She was bringing her soul when they got trapped in the Celestial. She's still in there. As the Valkyrie with no name takes off, Jane asks if that was really a good idea, and Brunhild states that if the axe doesn't cheer her up, nothing will. Jane sets off to aid with the fight on Earth when she stops by to see Sif. Without looking back, she tells Jane that she's looking for Hildegard. She's here to ask to join the battle that must be fought but will not be won. And burden weighs heavy on her. Jane says that it does, but Sif goes on stating that Hildegard is not here. A war of heroes and gods, unspeakable monsters, slim chance for survival. Jane laughs, stating that she was already there then, and Sif shares the laugh, telling her aye. It is very much a Hildegard thing. She will send Hildegard word of their arrival. Back over in Vanaheim, the Valkyrie with no name seeks the one named Valandi, the King of Thieves. However, instead of flying, the Valkyrie lands to feel the ground beneath her feet, to take in the sights, to live once more. And after breathing in the fresh air, she walks towards her destination when she hears a rumble. 2 rock trolls emerge from the cliffside, intent on eating them. And with ease, she leaps into the air, slicing the heads off of the trolls when a spear suddenly flies by her head. A man steps to the top of the cliff, telling her that he will warn her. Leave this place. The Valkyrie asks if he is Valandi, king of the scoundrels. He has something that belongs to her. Valandi holds out Jarnborn, stating that if it was hers, it would be in her hands, not his. The Valkyrie says that she is running low on moral high ground. She cares not how he got it, but that axe is coming with her. Valandi asks if that's so. Why not come and claim it? And the Valkyrie smiles, stating that she thought he'd never ask. Back on Earth, Jane flies down to the side of Danny, and Danny asks if she's dead. Is this how it ends? And Jane tells her that it is not the end yet. Rise. But at that moment, another symbiote dragon crawls towards them, and a voice states, "There you are!" Hildegard leaps in, slashing the beast's face, yelling, "Valkyrie, you were looking for me?" And as the Asgardian lands, Jane says yes, but let's handle this first. Danny pulls back on her bow, stating, "Let's." And Hildegard finishes her sentence, telling her, "Finish the wee bastard." At a young age, Hildegard was in the care of the combat trainer, Matthias. She had bested every swordsman, champion, gladiator, foalist, and warrior the land had to offer, including Matthias himself. Though her ambitions of fighting the gods were not far off, Matthias wanted to teach her one particular skill. He left her in a cave with a grumpy old dragon, a sort of crash course in humility, or perhaps the food chain. The young Hildegard asked what was this supposed to do, and the dragon spews fire at everything that moves. It was something about picking her battles. She didn't need to fight the dragon. She merely needed to pass it. And if it attacks everything, become nothing. He also had these dragon rules, the 3 T's. Meanwhile, back in the current day, Danny is helping Hildegard to her feet, asking what are the 3 T's. And Hildegard laughs, telling her, teeth, tail, and toes. Danny says, toes? And Hildegard tells her, well, claws, really. Valkyrie, there is a weak spot beneath its jaw. As Jane flies up, Hildegard swings in, slicing off the symbiote dragon's claws, causing it to recoil, giving Jane the opening that she needs to cut off the head. Danny then says, okay, 1 down, millions of dragons to go, and Hildegard asks if there's a better plan than that. Please say that you have some kind of a plan. Jane says she does. Well, it was Brunhild's plan. Meanwhile, in Vanaheim, the Valkyrie with no name is carving her way through Vanlandi's forces, reclaiming her once legendary axe. No foe, big or small or made of rock, can stop her from getting her hands on it. And now that she has recovered Jarnborn, she is facing yet another problem. Though she feels invincible, she fears that she might not be able to do what Brunhild asked. While trapped inside of the Celestial, every day would repeat. But the worst part, it was comforting. The lack of risk, the endless do-overs, the no true surprises. Even a familiar nightmare can be less frightening than the unknown. What she is afraid of, if she does go back, is that she will find out who she truly is, a coward. Back on Earth, Hildegard says that she is understanding it, that they must step into the place between life and death, perform an ancient ritual, and then battle the dead. All while the third must head to Null's den to find the Necro Sword, preferably before her inevitable end. Jane says, well, put it that way, but we must sever the connection between the Celestial and the Necro Sword. Hildegard says, righto, I will find the Necro Sword if you don't mind. I much prefer my feet firmly planted in the world of flesh and beer. Danny says that she will go where she's needed, but she no longer has Valkyrie powers. How will she get there? Jane tells her not to worry. Bright wind will take her through the veil, and there's no time in between the worlds. She will be all that she once was and ever will be, which hopefully means that she'll have her powers again. As Danny saddles up, she looks at the destruction of the city, stating that this battle could have been avoided if Null had understood the value of their lives. If one single mind changed, all death would end. Jane tells her yes, at least they fight together. Meanwhile, in Valhalla, Brunhild watches as her brothers and sisters train for a war that will never come. At night, they feast and drink as they do before every battle. Dead Valkyries do not tire. There is joy, there is contentment, there is utter peace known only to the unliving, all but one. Brunhild can feel herself distracted. A seed of inspiration, an idea is growing in her mind. But the afterlife is not a place for growth. Ivanar weaves realities that will never be. Her nimble fingers do not tire as they decide the outcome of battles long since fought. Brunhild says that she has come seeking counsel. Jane Foster is going to fight the Celestial. Ivanar says that Jane Foster will die. But Brunhild mentions she told Jane about the ritual, that they have gotten the needle from Asgard. And Ivanar asks, "You told them? You should not meddle in the affairs of the living, Brunhild. These ancient powers are not playthings. Jane will be torn to pieces. She has no claim in this fight." Brunhild asks, does she not? One can argue that a fight with the dead should be fought by the dead. And so the seed spreads. That is the problem with ideas, of course. It takes more than death to kill them. In the space between, Jane and Danny steady themselves as they begin their ritual, and together they use the needle to pierce the very fabric of reality. It weaves through dimensions, ripping deep cuts in time and space. For the last part, they must cast the needle to Midgard. And so once the pattern is made, Jane throws the needle in hopes that Hildegard will catch it. And down below, Hildegard walks through the death and decay, telling herself that she must be nothing if she wishes to ride a dragon. It is a blessing to have a purpose here in the city where all hope fails, to have something to do, to know that if she can only make it far enough in, if she can only find Null, her light will mean something in the end. If she chooses her battles wisely, she will make a difference. It is not a place lacking in glorious deaths after all, but hers is not here, not yet. As Null displays his strength, Hildegard realizes that she chose this battle poorly. There are two kinds of battles, one with an exit strategy and the other kind. This is the other kind. She knows this because she is not scared. However, in that trying moment, there is a sign in the form of a needle. Matthias told her that there would be a time when she knew the fight was over, when she'd known that she had done all that she could and she'd feel nothing but joy. As Hildegard takes the needle, sending it back, she remembers that before, she would have said no. Never. That she'd go down screaming bloody fury. But she was wrong. As the symbiote begins to swallow her, she knows that there is nothing but love here. At the end. Meanwhile, as the needle that was cast to separate Null's source of power from his necrosword, the Valkyries, Jane and Danny, carefully weave through the fabric of reality. The needle is piercing truth and eternity, and they are suffering. Their needle is not one of blood, but of light, and Odin willing, it will sever the connection between the Necrosword and the Headless Celestial. The soul-devouring Celestial will be vulnerable, and if their sisters are successful, it will be beatable, and so is the King in Black. They have hunted the Celestial, this abomination of the afterlife, and they have fought it and they have lost. But now they have a chance to set things right, and that is why it is their duty, not to just be content with their eternal reward, but to help their living sisters if they can. As Brunhild finishes her speech, Ivanar steps through into the Great Hall, stating that the dead have no duty, and that their sisters will fail once more, and that this is a fool's errand. However, she is old and she is foolish, and more than that, she is furious, so she shall fight. Meanwhile, in the space between the worlds, Jane and Danny continue their work, and the Headless Celestial begins to stir. Danny says that there is no way that they can stop it, but Jane tells her to stay behind and do not let go of the thread. They have to finish the ritual. Perhaps she can buy them some time. Danny asks what could she even do against that thing, and Jane takes flight, telling her, "You sound like my oncologist." As Jane gets closer, she pulls out her weapon to form a shield, and the massive sword comes crashing down. She holds her shield up, hearing the voices of the dead speaking to her. And there is another voice in there as well, one that is very much alive. At that moment, the nameless Valkyrie flies through, screaming every obscenity that she can muster while swinging her axe, shattering pieces of the Celestial's armor. Jane calls to her, telling her that she came back, and the Valkyrie says that her horse was, well, let's say convincing. She figured that they were going to Valhalla, so she may as well beat the rush. The Valkyries then take the charge back to the Celestial, but through those fragmented pieces of the armor, Jane can see the dead, their entire lives. And she looked close enough, and in that second, she is caught off guard and the darkness takes hold of her. As soon as Jane blinks, she finds herself in a classroom. back when she was a child. Her old teacher, Miss Anderson, tells her to go ahead and sit down, and as Jane does, she says that this is not real. Miss Anderson asks why would she say that. Jane tells her because her mother would never let her wear this dress to school, and Miss Anderson is dead. Miss Anderson says that that is not a very nice thing to say, and as Jane blinks, she is her normal self, stating that they are the Celestial. They are in her head, and she is in theirs. Miss Anderson then says that they had hoped that she'd be more open-minded. They can give her whatever she would want if she would stop this. Jane blinks, changing back into her lab coat, and then the classroom door opens and a little boy comes running in yelling, "Mom." Jane hugs her son Jimmy, and Miss Anderson asks, "Isn't this nice?" They are not bad. Jane then asks Jimmy, does he remember the old rhyme, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty sat on the... And Jimmy interrupts, "Wall!" Jane hugs him again and says to thank the gods. He isn't real. Miss Anderson says why would she say that, and Jane tells them that her son loved that rhyme, and when he got older, he'd play with it. Humpty would be a rhinoceros or a T-Rex, and then the T-Rex would eat Humpty. After that, he never went back to saying wall. Back outside, Danny calls to the nameless Valkyrie that Jane has been pulled inside. The Valkyrie gets ready to charge in, but that's when she hears a horn in the distance. She pauses. She looks around. Is that Gjallarhorn? She looks back and Danny sees Brunhild yelling that it's the Valkyries. The Valkyries! They ride again! Brunhild flies up, stating that indeed they do. She can see the connection to Null that has not yet been severed. And is she wearing the holy threads of Ymir as a bracelet? Danny says that the Celestial attacked before they could finish the ritual. Also, she thinks it looks pretty good on her. The Valkyrie with no name calls out to Ivanar that Jane is trapped inside, and Ivanar asks what is she waiting for, go get her. Back inside, the Celestial says that they can give her other things too. They can give her power, knowledge, strength. The things that she would need to make the universe a better place. She could be a god again. Century kneels before her asking, "Don't you see? We can defeat Null. We have the strength of millions. His hive would not beat ours." Jane hesitates, and she considers it for a moment, but then says that she would gladly give her life for Midgard. But not like this. They have to stop it now. Let the other souls go. Outside, Brunhild, Ivanar, and Danny continue to perform their ritual. One last time, we break existence, and Danny asks that death is never really that boring, is it? And so the needle is threaded. The Valkyries pull the thread, connecting the necrosword to the dead, pulling it out of the fabric of reality. Null feels the loss, and he vows that the gods will suffer for it. Hildegard feels it too, as her symbiotic prison shatters. Soon the needle returns to the space between the worlds, piercing a hole in the Celestial's armor. The Valkyrie with no name strikes at the tear, ripping it asunder until it comes crumbling down. And inside she sees Jane and calls out that she has to get out before the Celestial falls apart. Jane says that there is no escape from this. They have to let their prisoners go. Let them pass. The fragmented Celestial asks why. Why would they let them go? Jane says because it will determine where they go next. Just as she has to let go of her own. She longs for her son, she will miss him, but she knows in her heart, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. As Jimmy fades, Jane turns to the Celestial, telling them that they have to let go. That moment was the end and a beginning, the next. There is 1,000 things that the living have no words for. Through the haze, the Valkyries see fragments of lives led and stories told and finished. The Valkyrie with no name hears a voice call out to her, and she turns back to the soul of her lover, Alta, asking if they remember the first night on Cluth, after their ship broke. The endless wait for that inedible food. Alta says yes. It tasted like wet, used bandages. She then asks if they remember the literal acid rain. They huddled under the bridge, and Alta says that they were both sore and colder than a frost giant's ass. Yes. The Valkyrie says that it was the best day of her life until the next, and the day after that. She, Alta, places her fingers on the Valkyrie's lips, telling her, hers too. Ivanar departs for the next, bringing the Celestial with them, and the nameless Valkyrie asks Jane who was that little boy, and Jane says her son. The Valkyrie asks, has she found the meaning, because they have looked and they've got nothing, and Jane says not yet. In the few short years she had with her son, he taught her patience, sacrifice, kindness, and love. All the best of her is his doing, and she can't give up on that yet. Though she supposes the only thing that she can do is go on. The only good thing left in them leads that way, you know? Valkyrie last telling her, well, Alta did teach them how to throw an axe, among other things. Nicer things. Jane tells them good, because they will need their axes. The Valkyrie asks, can they really beat Null? And Danny says that she does not know that they can't. Jane says that means that she has hope, but that is enough for her. The Valkyrie laughs again, asking, hope? Ah, well, what the hell? It's worth a shot. To Midgard for the final battle with Null. With Null's symbiote dragon raining down destruction across the city, Bucky jumps onto a destroyed building, firing several sound grenades to clear himself a path. But as he looks up, he sees more incoming and calls out the Falcon that they have incoming. Falcon swoops down, telling him that he knows the mission brief was to pull away as many symbiote dragons as they can from Venom, but soon more of the horde begins to surround the two of them, and then a shield begins to bounce off the heads of the underlings, with Falcon stating that it looks like their favorite teacher just showed up. As the shield returns, Cap grabs it, jumping into the fray, stating, heard you could use a hand. What's the plan, guys? Falcon tells them that it's good to have him back, but is he sure it's not too soon? Cap reassures him that he appreciates the concern, but they have a job to do. However, it doesn't matter if Cap is ready or not. His presence gives those around him a second wind and a fighting chance. It doesn't matter if he was just freed from Null's grasp. He needs to be on the battlefield to rally everyone together. But in the back of his mind, he can still feel Null pulling. Null's voice creeping in, asking, do you see them as children? Is that why you're so eager to join them, so that you could lead your children? How about I borrow you for a moment? Your philosophical whining is only holding up the inevitable. Except that that will hurt the ones that you love over and over again. But just now, this isn't your fault. You're just a perfect vehicle for violence and betrayal. That's right, put Bucky down. Things would have been so much easier if he had just joined in the first place. As Cap blinks, the visions of him converting Bucky fade, and Bucky asks, is everything okay? After a brief moment, Null is silent again, but there is no relief. All he is shaking horror, the uncertainty, the almost was. Cap gets up, trying to help Bucky set things up, but suddenly there's a scream from down on the street. Cap races in, telling Bucky to help get Falcon set up. He's got this. But he doesn't. He lied. He lied to them and himself, and he throws himself headfirst into the oncoming danger, fighting his way through the black abyss that is Null's power. However, it doesn't matter. He stumbles, he falls, and Null's voice slinks back in. Did he already forget how little it takes to slither back in to control him, to make him lie? He is a fool. How dare you tell anyone that you've got them, when you can't even control yourself, Captain? Cap tells himself this isn't real, none of this. But doesn't matter. Soon everything fades to black, and Cap gets to work helping Falcon with his rig while Bucky covers him. As Cap sets up the rig, Falcon asks if everything's okay. It's not like him to waste seconds. Anything he needs to tell them? Cap tells him, no, just. But Bucky yells that any time now would be good. Falcon takes off into the sky, stating that they will deal with this later. Once Falcon is in position, he flips the switch, pouring fire down on all of the symbiotes below. It's working. At least until Sam is struck in the back of the head by Cap's shield. Did he throw the shield, or was it another trick? Falcon yells that he's hit, but one of the symbiote dragons begins to coil around him, throwing him into the wall. Cap tells himself that he doesn't have time to panic. He needs to go into action, grab the sound grenades, ignore the snarls, both the creatures and Null's. Fight, punch, hang on, cling on as long as you can until your fingers give. But as Cap falls, Null asks how many times must they do this until he understands. He slips and everything falls apart. Soon after, the dragon falls from the sky, causing a giant hole in the ground. Falcon and Bucky help the survivors out, but through the rubble, Cap's arm hangs out. Suddenly, it shifts as the symbiotes begin to take over. He is supposed to be the beacon, the symbol of hope, but now he is a target. The villain reaches out his hand, and the monster answers their cries. His presence no longer inspires. Instead, Captain America's presence now infects. Soon the darkness fades and Cap reaches for his shield, but he can't reach it. He tries again, but Falcon and Bucky help him up. Bucky tells him not to worry. They know. And Cap asks, what do you mean? And Bucky asks, do you think that you're the only one who knows what it feels like to love yourself? The voice doesn't ever go away, sure, but that means what you believe in has to be stronger. It has to always get stronger. Cap pulls himself up, telling him, thanks. But Bucky tells him that he can thank them by pointing them where they need to go. So Cap looks around at the abandoned subway, grabbing one of the nearby flame grenades, chucking it. It's not going to stop him, but he needs to spark something. The grenade goes off, igniting the entire railway. But Cap stands firm with his shield, diverting the blast around him. As everyone climbs back out of the subway, Cap tells himself he doesn't know what kind of monsters will try and skip through the cracks of self-doubt. All he knows is that right now, it's time to get back into that fight. Hell has broken loose, literally, because in his own arrogance, Johnny Blaze thought that it would be easier, that he could make a change. And when you think about it, it does kind of sound stupid. But what was he going to do? Introduce a rehabilitation program? Nope. Instead, Hell rose up against Johnny in rebellion, and now Lilith is out in the wild plotting to seize control of Hell from him. All the while, hundreds of demons run amok on Earth. And Johnny is literally dragging Mephisto around on a chain at the end of his bike to keep an eye on him. That is, until Johnny comes to a halt when he sees one of Null's symbiote dragons flying around. As more dragons make their way towards New York, Mephisto says, "You know, this is looking pretty bad, Johnny. There are, 8 million people in New York? Some of them innocent. Maybe. Though I'm pretty sure those people will be fine. Maybe they're friendly dragons, Johnny. Besides, it's not your problem anymore, right? Your concerns are heaven and hell. The mortal place is best left to the mortals." Johnny grabs Mephisto, telling him, "Shut up!" And he gets back on his bike as he takes off towards the dragons. Once in range, Johnny takes another one of his chains, lassoing it around the dragon, pulling himself into the sky, while the dragon thrashes, trying to get him off. Down below in the streets, debris is falling off of some of the buildings when a taxi driver gets out and begins to yell at the Ghost Rider. However, before he can even finish, a demon rips through his back and chest, telling him, "Don't worry, we'll deal with these maniacs. We'll bring down the false king and Mephisto. Kill the false king, Johnny Blaze." While Johnny deals with trying to not be absorbed into the dragon, Mephisto tells him, "You might want to consider having a plan besides taking out one dragon. Besides, there seems to be a lot of eager customers heading your way in the form of more dragons." Johnny touches the dragon and he can feel that somehow Venom is involved in this, because you just don't forget the slick, slithering feeling of a symbiote. Johnny then sets the dragon ablaze with hellfire, but even that isn't fully stopping it. No idea if the damnation stare is going to work either. Not sure if this thing even has a soul. Maybe he'll get lucky. As he grabs him doing the stare, it does something, but not as much as Johnny would have liked it to do, especially with the amount of energy that it took to even bring one down. But as the dragon comes crashing down into the street, its head now cut off, Danny, wearing the necrosis armor, tells him, "Hey, looks like you could use a hand, brother." Johnny looks at him. "Is it really you?" And Danny tells him, "I go by Death Rider now. Didn't really want to use the last guy's name. Necrosis? Come on. Besides, Death Rider feels more on brand, right? Ghost Rider, Death Rider. Anyway, the Blight Blade only stunned that dragon. It's trying to pull itself back together. We need to... Wait, what is Blackheart doing here?" Almost forgetting that there are others with the Death Rider, Johnny whips his chain around Blackheart's neck, and Blackheart asks, "Do you really think that those chains are going to hold me, Ghost Rider?" Johnny whips the chain up, slamming Blackheart into the ground, asking, "What are you doing here? Trying to snatch the crown from me as well?" Blackheart gets up, telling him, "I am here to end this ridiculous war, to stop you before any more die." As Johnny tightens his grip, the Death Rider puts his hand on Johnny's shoulder, telling him, "It's okay. Let him go. We don't have any time for this, Johnny." Johnny hesitates for a moment, then loosens his chains, and the caretaker says, "That went well." Blackheart pulls the chains off, telling him that the Ghost Riders have never been known for their temperament. The Death Rider goes on stating, "I know this looks a little strange, but Blackheart is here because he wants to keep Lilith from taking the throne, Johnny. He's also infected Stacy and Emma's souls, and he won't release them unless we help him end the war. Those two are not a part of this. They don't deserve to die because of what we've done with our lives, Johnny." Johnny asks, "Stacy, your ex?" And the Death Rider tells him, "Look, it's a long story." Johnny stops him. "Okay, how does Blackheart propose that we end this war of heaven and hell?" And the Death Rider tells him, "You're not going to like it. It involves Mephisto." But then Johnny realizes that he hasn't been keeping an eye on Mephisto, and he managed to escape. Down the road, Mephisto jumps over cars, telling him, "I just need a few more minutes to get the hell out of here," and a demon jumps out, grabbing Mephisto, yelling, "My king, please, we're here to help you." But before Mephisto could tell him to get off, the symbiotes begin to infect the demons because there's still a war with Null going on, and they create symbiote demons who want to now eat Mephisto's spine. As the others catch up, the caretaker grabs her sword, stating that they need to get Mephisto away from the symbiotes. Blackheart jumps straight in, telling them all that they need the symbiotes occupied. He will tend to his father. As the demons begin to surround everyone, the caretaker says that these demons are infected by one organism. If he uses the damnation stare on one, the rest should fall. Johnny says that he's going to need some time. He isn't so sure that he can do it more than once. The last time it felt like his head was going to explode. As the caretaker cuts down on some of the symbiotes, Johnny grabs a hold of a demon to give it the stare, but then is smacked in the face with a glob of symbiote. The demons yell that they won't let him hurt Mephisto again. It's your turn to hurt, Ghost Rider! We're going to! But then the demon is stabbed from behind with the Death Rider telling him, "That's twice that I saved you, in case you were counting." The caretaker yells that it's nice that he took a demon down, but he should get to work on the other 1,000 demons. Johnny grabs a hold of one of the demons and holds him down, telling him, "Look into my eyes! Feel the pain that you were inflicted on the others! Feel the searing suffering, unyielding wrath of the damnation stare!" As the symbiotes are all burned away, the black goop pours onto the ground and Mephisto gets ready to leave, but Blackheart stops him. "We have a plan." Blackheart uses one of the demons to sacrifice, and as they explode in a whirlwind of flesh and guts, Mephisto says, "Ah, the portal of 1,000 condemned souls. Very clever. This would fill my heart knowing my son wouldn't forsake me, if I had a heart. But it's time to go home. All I need to do is..." But before he could step into the portal, regain his throne as the king of hell, Johnny grabs him. "This is getting old." But the caretaker says, "You have to let Mephisto go, Johnny." Johnny yells that Mephisto is the only one who can lead him to Lilith's army. Without him, he's not even sure he can do this. Caretaker tells him that even with him, he can't. Mephisto's been dealing with Lilith's attempts to take over Hell for over a millennia, and he's been ruling Hell for a few months. Look at the state of things. But if they let Mephisto go, if they let him reclaim his throne, they can end this. They know how Mephisto operates. They've battled him before. They'll battle him again. Lilith, however, if she wins, if she kills him and manages to seize Hell from a Ghost Rider, she won't be stopped there. She's going to rise up. Johnny yells, "After everything that Mephisto has done, all of the others that he has damned, how many lives has he left in ruin?" And Death Rider tells him, "I'm sorry, truly, but Ghost Rider is needed here. Look at this fight. You can continue to try and save the souls of everyone in the world, but if we don't stop this here, there won't be any souls left to save, Johnny. But rest assured, if Mephisto tries anything, we'll go to Hell and we'll kill him ourselves." As the chains fall, Mephisto laughs. "Haha, parting is such sweet sorrow, Ghost Rider. I shall miss our time together. Oh, and I'll be taking a little dollop of whatever the hell this thing is." After taking a symbiote, Mephisto steps into the portal, yelling, "Ta-ta!" Once the portal closes, Johnny tells them, "I hate this. Choosing the devil you know over the devil you don't. It's still choosing a devil." Death Rider gets on his horse, telling him, "I know. This isn't the ending that I wanted, but sometimes you have to take what you can get. The important thing is, we never stop fighting." Earth has fallen. The god of the void has conquered all, including some of the most powerful children of the atom. The symbiotes swarm the planet searching for something, or someone. And the human that knew this enemy beast fell early in battle. Eddie Brock was killed in the opening move. Kate says, wait. Is it because of Venom? Spider-Man really needs to get a grip on his guys. Bishop goes on stating that is the word that he was given from X-Force, and Pyro says, "You sure do like talking like a cop, huh?" Bishop goes on stating that their mission is simple: smash and grab. They get in, get their people, and they get out. Pyro asks, what about the one controlling all the space dragons? And Bishop tells him that is a stretch goal. Two of their own are under duress. Cyclops and Storm are near the top of the Empire State Building. They are on the job. Iceman and Pyro will make a flashy entrance from up above. Red Queen and himself will sneak in low. And just as the Marauders sail towards Manhattan, a distress call comes over the radio that a ship is under attack and they need assistance. Kate listens, and Bishop tells her that they are already on a rescue mission. But Kate says that nobody means more to her than Storm, but they are not about to let someone who needs help go unheard. So the Marauder sees the ship that sent out the distress call as dozens of symbiote dragons swarm around and begin to tip over the ship. As Pyro begins to burn some of the dragons, one manages to fly around and swoop down. But before it could bite him, Iceman freezes it, sending it crashing down onto the deck. The head of the dragon tries biting, but then it suddenly explodes, with Bishop laughing, stating, "Haha, don't worry, I got you covered." But before long, the dragon's head reforms and Pyro burns it, asking, "How are these things still alive?" Iceman creates a bridge, allowing people from the sinking ship to board, and Kate asks what about their cargo. At that moment, a sudden tapping sound can be heard. Something in Morse code. The captain says that it's just olive oil. Nothing that can't be grown again. We should probably leave now, right? But something doesn't sit right with Bishop about how the captain responded, and he makes his way into the sinking ship. He walks through the halls, listening to the taps, until he finds the source. Dozens of people are trapped inside a cage, shouting for help. Bishop radios back that they need to get this ship stabilized now. So Iceman quickly freezes the water, pushing the ship back up to help everyone out. Bishop then says that human traffickers almost got rid of their evidence, and Kate walks up to the captain asking, "Olive oil, huh?" The captain tells her, "I didn't know, they don't tell me." But Kate smacks him, calling him scum. "Iceman, show these slavers off of our ship." "I will so do that with pleasure." The captain yells, "Wait a minute, you can't leave us, it's a death sentence." And Kate holds her sword to his neck. Yes, it is the same one you just gave your replaceable cargo. Iceman then tells them, fortunately for them, mutants don't believe in the death sentence, so please, follow me through this portal. As he steps through, he walks into Sage's room, stating that he has some human bogies passing through. Where will our most unpleasant gate lead? Sage asks, do you want terrestrial or non-terrestrial? Iceman thinks about it for a moment and then states, we better leave them on Earth. Be right back. As he goes back out, Iceman tells everyone, all right, this way. If you could just politely step through the gate here. The captain and his men step through and they appear in a large desert, with the captain stating that they are bluffing. No way you'd leave us out here. Iceman tells them that this is the nice part of Africa's Namib Desert. The city is a walk that way. Get some exercise and be grateful that the sun is blocked out. The captain shouts, asking, you're not even gonna give us water? And Iceman pauses before going back through the gate and then tells them, sure. And he creates a pile of ice bricks in the sand. As he leaves, he tells them to make sure and carry as many as they can. Back on the Marauder, Bishop returns stating that the ship is clear, and the woman leading the group says, thank you. Her name is Naoka. Bishop tells her nice work with the Morse code, and Kate says that she understands that this is a bad time, but they're going into a combat zone. They'll drop them off in New Jersey before going in. And Naoka yells, no, you can't. And Kate says that she knows that Jersey gets a bad rap, but it's not Florida. And Naoka shouts, we can't go to America. We paid those men to bring us to Canada. Who knows what would happen if we return and all the men are gone? Soon, everyone begins to ask if they can please just be brought to Canada. And Kate contacts Emma Frost, stating that she could use a bit of help here. Emma says that she knows that it's impossible to allow humans onto Krakoa. The mission was Scott, and Storm, of course. But then Magneto asks, what humans on what island? After telepathically relaying all the information, Magneto says, oh, it was a matter of time. If we put it in for a vote, there is one assured outcome. Kate yells, then don't put it to a vote. We didn't ask the government before we helped people. Don't we have the latitude to fix this ourselves? Magneto says they do have the latitude. And Emma says that and the longitude. Once the dragons clear out, the Marauder makes its way for the North Atlantic, with Kate telling Naoka that she is the last one. Good luck. You'll be safe here. Naoka steps off telling everyone thanks, and Kate calls out all right. Back to New York at the best speed we can. Be well, everyone, and don't worry, the steward of the island knows a thing or two about being in your boat. As the Marauder sails off, Callisto walks up telling everyone, welcome to Island M. Sadly, we don't have any more umbrellas, and the woman who controls the weather is a bit off her rocker right now, being controlled by the God of the Void. There are parts of the island where you will not be welcome, and we will know if any of you stray. Your ship's medicine, money, and now whiskey comes through here. Stay clear of the port to the south. Please take a potted tree as a gift and keep on the path. The North Shore is straight ahead. Once ready, plant your trees and you'll have shelter from the storm. Everyone begins to plant their trees, patiently waiting, and then suddenly the trees and vines begin to rapidly grow. Later, Naoka skips rocks along the coast, with Magneto asking if she is the one that they call Naoka. She stumbles, stating, "Yes, are you our host?" Magneto grabs a rock, throwing it, telling her, "Yes, I thought this island was my home once. Now I realize it is more than just a home. It is a sanctuary. Perhaps that is what this place has always been. A place in the North Atlantic between two worlds." Naoka asks if the sanctuary offered to them is out of kindness of his heart or another reason. Magneto tells her that she has every right to be skeptical. Weak nations prey on those in need. Strong nations do not fear showing kindness. When the emergency passes, they will be moved from this island to a country of their choosing with the assistance of his government. But there is something that he wants from them. Many stories will be written of Krakoa's might. May she tell one of their mercy. Miles and Genki look up, shocked to see the black dragon flying past them, disappearing behind some buildings. Miles begins to question the sight of the dragon, but stops himself. You know what? It doesn't matter. We just had the school rebuilt and I need to stop this thing. Can you find any stragglers and help them get to safety? Miles asks his friend. Genki nods as the two of them bump fists, and in minutes, Miles is swinging through the air as Spider-Man, quickly catching up to the huge beast who is attacking a school bus. "Hey there, dragon! No people in there! Everyone's been evacuated!" he shouts, but the monster turns, swinging his tail, destroying one of the nearby buildings. Miles manages to avoid the attack, landing on the ground, shooting his webs over the monster's eyes. But he screams as the dragon leaps into the air, quickly taking flight. He manages to flip and land on the creature's back, intending to steer it, but suddenly the black goo of the symbiotes begin to swirl around his legs. "You're a symbiote!" Miles shouts in surprise, realizing that the creature has been taken over by Null. "Don't worry, I can drive you out. I've done it before. This is gonna hurt. Sorry." Miles tells the dragon as he leans forward, hitting it with a venom strike, exploding the symbiote from the large creature. "Null can't control you anymore," Miles tells the creature as he catches his breath on the ground. He pats the dragon on the head, because for some reason, it's a real dragon and not just one of the symbiote ones that have been flying around. Suddenly, his phone begins to buzz and he glances down to see a text from Miss Marvel, telling him that she needs to help at the Lower East Side. "Hey, I don't suppose you could give me a lift across the river?" Miles asks the real, actual dragon. Flying across the river, Miles points to the fires of destruction on the Lower East Side. The dragon sets down on a roof, and Miles suggests that the beast find somewhere safe to hide. With a nod, the creature flies away, and Miles turns to the task at hand. But his spidey sense suddenly kicks in, and he turns just in time to be hit by a flying motorcycle. He looks up at the massive hand slamming it to the ground on either side of him, and smiling down at him is a symbiote-bonded Miss Marvel. "Ah, there you are," she snarls, taking a swing with her massive fist, barely missing Miles as he moves to avoid it. He backflips, avoiding another power slam from her, but he can't dodge the next attack, which slashes him across the shoulder. "I guess you can't hear me in there. That thing's got control of your mind," Miles yells as he swings and flips, avoiding more of her attacks. Kamala continues to taunt him, but Miles looks at her. "You're my friend, and I'm going to get you out of there," he yells to her. Shooting webs at her, she shifts and morphs so that the webbing goes right through her. "You need to learn, little spider, that you don't matter," she hisses, reaching out, grabbing Miles in her massive, elongated hand. "Please, I know you can hear me," Miles shouts as he charges up his venom strike, hitting her with it. "Didn't want to have to do this," he shouts, and Kamala twists, screaming in pain as the venom strike lashes through her body. The symbiote begins to come off, but it isn't enough as it twists and reforms around her. "You can fight this! You're as strong as they come! You're Miss Marvel, damn it!" Miles shouts at her, continuing to hit her with the venom strikes. Kamala looks up, shocked to see her friend. "Miles, get this thing off me!" she shouts, and he leans in, telling her, "I don't want to hurt you." But the symbiote begins to control her once more, even as Kamala begins to fight it. "I'm sorry, Kamala," Miles whispers as he hits her with everything that he's got. The venom strike erupts around them, knocking the cars aside, shattering windows. Kamala struggles to her feet as the smoke clears. "I feel like I get hit by a truck," she gasps, and she stands up smiling. "At least that thing is out of my head. I'm free," she cheers, and she turns to thank Miles, but yells in shock as she sees her friend on the ground. Spider-Man lays unconscious, still smoking, his costume torn from the impact, and Kamala picks her friend up, cradling him in her arms as she turns to see the other symbiote dragons approaching. "Don't worry, I've got you," she whispers. With the heroes all trying to formulate a plan, Spider-Man pulls Dylan aside to tell him that they have to have a little talk. They may not know each other, but he made a promise to Eddie to keep him safe. But there's more to it than that. He, of all people, should know what it's like. He too has lost his parents. A lot of people, really. All people that he's loved. It seems like the world is crumbling away. Like the Earth shouldn't still be spinning, now that they're gone. But then, it always does. It just keeps spinning. The world keeps going and it never stops asking for things from him. It never stops hitting. It never stops knocking you down. But people like them, they have the power to stop it. They can get back up. They can grab the world and slow it down. They can make sure that the things that happened never happened to anyone else. That is why he comes here with something that was never given to him. A choice. It's okay to not get back up right now. It's okay to not face what's ahead. Everyone may keep stating that he's the only one with the power to turn the tide. As heroes, they face the impossible each and every day, and they always make it out. And even if this seems impossible, they will find a way. But just know, he does not have to do this. Soon, Reed says that it's time, and Spider-Man looks at Dylan asking if he needs anything. Dylan grits his teeth, telling him that he needs to hurt something. Meanwhile, back in the hive mind where Eddie Brock is located, he begins to scream in pain and Rex asks him what is happening. Is he? Eddie says that he doesn't know, but something is wrong. How is Flash Thompson here? Didn't his codex? Flash asks, what, die after you wore it? Sorry, doesn't work like that, Eddie. Just because it was lost to you doesn't mean that I was lost. We all end up back here in the hive. Eddie asks, well, if that's true, did you hear? And Flash asks, what? What you said in my grave? About me being the better Venom, a better man, and the greatest hero? I'm pretty sure I didn't say it exactly like. And Flash stops him. Nope, I was there. I heard every last word. But all kidding aside, it meant a lot, Eddie, to know that I wasn't forgotten, that I did some good. Thank you. Flash extends his hand, but as Eddie reaches for it, he screams in pain again. And Flash asks what's going on. Eddie says that it's Null. Something is happening. It's like he's connected to him somehow. It feels like something is hurting Null. And Rex asks what could possibly be hurting him like that, though. Eddie laughs. It's my boy, Dylan. But while Dylan joins the heroes out on the battlefield, back in the hive mind, Flash points up asking, what's going on? Everyone looks up to see all of the people caught in Null's influence beginning to disappear. Eddie says that it's Dylan. He's freeing them! And just then a giant red tear opens up. Eddie says that it's him. It's the hive mind, but it's different. I can feel it. Dylan is fighting up there. He's with Thor and they're winning. They're hurting Null. Null is losing control, and these red spots, these are bruises, wounds where the walls are breaking down. We aren't in the hive at all. We're in symbiote purgatory. Flash asks, if we're in purgatory, then what's beyond the wall? And Eddie begins to walk through telling him, it's exactly what we think. It's either heaven or hell. As everyone steps through, Rex looks around asking what is this, and Eddie tells him that it's the center. The central nervous system that connects all of the symbiotes in the universe. The eye of the center of the storm, the God Hive. Eddie points down at a group of separated symbiotes, stating that those ones in the cages, they've been cut off from the hive. There's a reason that Null is keeping them caged. They're free of his influence because of Dylan. If we could bond with them, the way that his symbiote is able to absorb Flash's codex, we can pilot those symbiotes out of here and get back to the fight. Flash asks if he's sure about this, and Eddie says, I'm not sure, but it's a feeling. This place is close to my other. It might be trying to reach out and help us. Rex says that they do know that this is a suicide mission, right? There's no way that Null's not going to notice. But as Eddie tries to come up with a plan, Flash tells them, I'll go. This is why Rex wanted me in the beginning, right? How this all started? Well, the wrong Venom stepped up, and now it's my turn to do the same. This is my mission. It always has been, so let me do it, Eddie. Eddie tells him that he deserves better than this, but Flash stops him. That's enough. You're always questioning yourself, always doubting if you're a good guy or a bad guy. You always think that you're not good enough to be a hero. Well, look around. Look at how far you've come. Faced the darkest evil in the galaxy and you've beaten it to hell back. You might not think that you can go toe-to-toe with Cap or Spider-Man, but you're storming the gates of hell to save the world and rescue your son. You are a hero, Eddie. Make no mistake, you're Venom. Now let me be a soldier. Eddie tries to think of something but laughs and tells him, good luck, Flash. Flash slides down the hill, opening fire, telling him, luck has nothing to do with it. Just watch. Once Flash reaches the bottom, he begins gunning down everything on his way towards the caged symbiotes. But one of the dragons swoops down, biting off one of his arms. He then bites the pin of a grenade, stating, this is it. The Hail Mary! The grenade goes off in the center of the separated symbiotes, and everyone can hear Null screaming, no! Flash falls back laughing, but the freed symbiotes all begin to surround him. Rex says that they're going to kill him, and Eddie says, no, just watch. The symbiotes bond with Flash and he begins to laugh. Yeah, hell yeah, let's go! Bonding with the symbiotes, he bursts out in the form of one of Null's dragons, knocking everyone away. But this isn't a dragon that's gonna fight against them. This is one that's going to fight for them. This is the anti-venom dragon. Eddie yells out that he did it. Flash broke the symbiotes out. He downloaded his codex into one of them, and now he's up there fighting. This is their chance. But suddenly, Eddie feels something lunge and grab him by the neck, and he asks Rex what is going on. Null begins to laugh as he takes over Rex's symbiote, telling him, I'm afraid that Rex is gone, Eddie! As Null holds Eddie over the edge of the cliff, he asks, why does this feel so familiar? Dylan looked around. The hive was all around him, faces of the symbiotes sneering and snarling, and he hears Null's voice telling him not to be afraid. It is time! Null growls, appearing behind Dylan. He floats forward, telling Dylan not to be afraid, that he isn't going to hurt him, but Null isn't the only voice that Dylan hears. Dylan, remain calm. Listen to me. The voice tells him. Null holds out his hand. I will give you the darkness. Together we can end this war. Join me or I will burn your world to the ground. He offers and Dylan reaches out, taking the god's hand. You killed my dad, he snarls as his power begins to burn through Null, and the dark deity screams in pain, the voice telling Dylan to reach out through the hive mind, to free the heroes that are trapped there. Free Cyclops, free Johnny Storm, free Sue Richards, free Thor, free Doctor Strange. All of them are freed within seconds. The voice begins to link the other heroes into her telepathic plan. I'm downloading the battle plan into your head. This might hurt, she warns Doctor Strange, and instantly he nods his head, motioning to Black Cat to give him his staff. There appears to be a rather intense plan forming, and I'm quite tired of sitting on the sidelines. He tells her. Strange slams his staff into the ground, transforming into the god of magic. Null believes himself to be a god. Well, two can play at that game. The voice links all the freed heroes together, coordinating their attacks. Cyclops lets loose with his optic blast. Sue launches an invisible blast at the gathered symbiotes. Strange lashes out with the magic, and the heroes begin to funnel all of the symbiotes into the center of the city. Namor, you're up. The voice orders. It's about time. The King of Atlantis growls, flanked by the other dark heroes of the depths. He slams his trident into the ground, creating a tidal wave, and off in the distance, Spider-Man looks at the combined attack. Guys, did I miss a meeting or something? He asks, the voice now in his head ordering him to get clear of the attack. Water washes over the city and Storm and Thor appear, lightning cracking from the sky, hitting the water and electrocuting all of the symbiotes trapped within. As Null falls in pain, the voice orders Dylan to leave, but the god lashes out quickly, grabbing the boy by the throat. No! You think you can beat me, child? Wound me through the hive! You think you've won, but you have not beaten me, boy, and you are alone. No one is coming! Null growls, but now the voice is in his head. Actually, that's where I come in, she says, and Null turns, demanding to know who has entered his mind. Oh, I don't believe we've been introduced. My name is Jean Grey. Now let's see what makes you bleed. Jean says as her psychic blasts rip apart the symbiotes around them. Null bellows in pain as Jean probes his mind. She sees the beginning. She sees him bending the very darkness to his will, creating the first symbiote. But her eyes widen in shock as she sees that there is nothing that she can do. Nothing the heroes of Earth can do to stop Null. But she sees a hope. There is another, a reaction to Null's darkness. Null is the god of the abyss, but not the darkness itself. Just as Null used the darkness as a weapon, the light rose up to stop him. The light acted as its own symbiote, choosing warriors to face Null. But the light wasn't strong enough, so it created something new, something stronger, a god of light. Jean falls, weakened by her attack, Cyclops running over, cradling his wife. She points up, telling Scott that the god of light is trying to get into Earth, but it can't get through Null's barrier. Around the planet, we see it. We see what has been going on in the cosmos. The god of light is slamming once more into the symbiote shields, but to no avail. And then Jean hears another voice in her head. Jean, don't worry. I am here. The Silver Surfer tells her as he takes the light within himself, pushing through the symbiote orb that covers the Earth. Null bellows in anger as the Surfer surges through the symbiote dragon horde, cutting through to the very center of them. The Surfer then stops as he hears the voice of the god. Oh, I see. You are not here for me. Go. Find your warrior. He tells the god of light. The god of light surges forward, and in his lab, Reed is studying the energy readings. He knows what this is. We've been calling it the wrong name. The Enigma Force solved, he gasps, and suddenly the energy hits the room behind him and Eddie Brock begins to float out of his bed as the power of light encircles him. Eddie's eyes open up wide, streaming energy forth out of his seemingly dead body. Eddie Brock, you have been chosen. The power's cosmic command. Flash Thompson was a bully. Then he was a soldier. Then he was a superhero, and now, well, he's a dragon. But Eddie Brock, he's a ghost, trapped as a memory of who he once was inside of a symbiote hive mind covering the entire world. And even still inside of that hive mind, Null's influence is supreme. Try as he might, Eddie is unable to stop Null, because this version of Null is a part of him, not actually Null. So once again, that moment of being dropped off a ledge repeats again and again. It's a part of the cycle, ashes to ashes, dust to... Except this time, Venom finds Eddie. As Venom bonds with Eddie, Eddie laughs. You broke free! You found me! And Venom responds, always! We're together again! We are Venom! And it is time for you to return to the real world, Eddie! Eddie asks him how. I thought I was just a memory. And Venom tells him, you're a codex, and together we can escape. We just have to choose a form. And as Eddie tells him that he has no idea that he may have stolen from another calling themselves Venom, a giant arm reaches out of the ground. Eddie grabs it, squishing a symbiote dragon, and Flash Thompson, as the symbiote dragon, flies overhead asking, holy crap, is that you, Eddie? And Eddie tells him, it is us, yes! Flash tells him, geez, okay, point me where to go. And Eddie tells him, no, this is between me and Null. I have to save my son, Dylan. I need you on the ground, Flash. Flash asks him, how? My physical form is in a grave. I can't just... And Eddie tells him, remember what happened to Cletus when he got a dragon symbiote? Oh wait, you aren't alive for that part. Just go to your grave. Trust me on that. As Flash leaves, Eddie begins to make his way towards Null. When Venom tells him to wait, a bright light begins to shine and Venom yells, this is it! The one that Wraith told us about! It's here! The God of Light is here, Eddie! At that moment, a beam of light shoots through Eddie and into Null as he awakens, reviving into the world of the living. Venom has felt them before, like their kind, but different. His light, approaching, blinding, screaming, roaring! As Eddie's body begins to fall out of the sky, he yells to Venom to wait. Don't leave me! And Venom tells him, it's okay. We must let go so that it may take you. We'll find you after. Always find you, Eddie. Once again, the light begins to shine and even the mere sight of it harms Null. But for Eddie, his physical form begins to awaken. It was at this time that Reed Richards started to channel the energy source. It behaves like a symbiote. It always has, this godlight. He knows what it is. They all do. They've just been calling it the wrong name. Finally, the Enigma Force is solved. Its cosmic energies flow through Eddie Brock, bringing his body back to life from the brink of death, and all he needs to do is choose his form. But Eddie laughs as it asks him, because there's only one answer to that question. He will be Venom! Meanwhile, over in the Arlington National Cemetery, Flash flies over the gravestones stating, all right, Brock, you better be right about this. Flash crashes into the ground, letting the dragon be absorbed into the hive. And a few moments later, a fully flesh and bone human hand reaches out of the grave, reviving Flash Thompson from the dead. Everyone makes sacrifices. The supervillain named Shriek sacrificed herself for the one that she loves. Too bad, the one that she loved was Carnage, and he repaid her by ripping her spine out. He used her body to resurrect a demon known as D-Mob Goblin. Now, D-Mob Goblin is luring innocent children into her own kitty cult. Trail went cold a few days ago, and it's been a crazy week with Null invading. But now she has resurfaced, brainwashing homeless boys and girls into blindly following her. She's using her demonic hellfire to hypnotize her disciples, acolytes she calls them, but no more. They will put her back in the ground, not just bury her. They're sending her all the way to hell where she belongs. And just then, Andy Benton, the host of Scream, crashes through the church windows using her hair to grab a hold of D-Mob Goblin. D-Mob Goblin shouts, "There you are! I was worried you wouldn't come." Scream then turns, using her hair to slam the goblin into the ground. As the goblin picks herself up laughing, she tells her, "You are too late! Can't you see? The black rain! The living ichor from the sky! God says that I shall send a great pestilence upon you! And this time, the pestilence walks among us! It flies through the air as a magnificent beast!" Soon the children all begin to grab Scream, and Andy tells her not to hurt them. They're just children, hurt, alone, nowhere to go. And Scream responds to her, "Not for long," and begins to carefully pick each one of them up off of her and set them to the side. As she finishes, the goblin jumps in, biting into Scream's arm, and Scream slams her down again. Goblin laughs, hurling flaming books, telling her, "It is such a waste! Even now you can feel the power simmering within. Instead of embracing the gifts, you are suppressing the hell mark, and its wondrous fire, Andy Benton, a flame unlike any other on the earth." Scream reaches up with her hair, telling her it is not a gift, it is a curse, and she begins to pull the support beams holding the roof down, causing the ceiling to fall on D-Mob Goblin. D-Mob Goblin flies out with her glider, laughing, stating, "It is time for you to spread the gospel." Scream gets ready to follow, but Andy stops her, telling her that they need to save the children first. Scream pulls back, growing more arms, taking the form of a spider, stating that that means they must adapt. After getting everyone out, Scream tells them that they are safe, and they need to go feast. It's 10 blocks away. Find May Parker and... But before she could finish, the goblin lets out a sonic scream, stunning her. She flies up and she sees that all of the symbiote dragons are coming their way, yelling, "Look! The angel heralds his arrival! His wrath is now upon you. Let those who have sinned fall to your knees!" Scream quickly scales a nearby building, jumping up, sprouting wings, gliding over the goblin, asking, "How are you flying without the glider?" D-Mob Goblin struggles to push Scream free, but Scream sinks her tendrils into the glider, knocking D-Mob off, stating that she should ask if their god can answer your cries now. The two tumble to the building below, with the goblin jumping to her feet, clawing at Scream's chest, telling her, "You are such a waste of that hell mark! Humans always run from their demons, trying to hide who they are. But they, what they truly are a demon themselves." Goblin screams again, nearly ripping Scream off of Andy. But she pulls herself, wrapping the strands of her hair around the goblins to stop her scream, telling her that that is enough. As she is pinned down, she laughs. "He's here, the King in Black!" Scream looks up and the goblin turns over onto her knees, bowing, yelling, "Hark! The Lord has sent me a deliverer, the pestilent king himself. It is too late, Scream. Too late to save the children. Too late to save this miserable city. Null is here." Null sinks into his symbiote, reappearing over the roof with D-Mob Goblin. He then grabs her by the face, covering her mouth, telling her, "You talk too much. Once the symbiotes have flooded your insides." Null throws her to the side, telling her that it is her time to leave. Once he walks forward, he says that he has sensed them in their faint light before. As Scream stands there, Andy says, "Hey, why aren't we fighting?" And Scream says that she can't bring herself to hurt a god, their god, the god of the symbiotes. Null says that they have been a thorn in his side since they first woke. They evaded Carnage and killed one of his children, and he intends to repay them for that in kind. Scream asks, You want our light? Come and take it. Null laughs. Oh, you have such spirit! Let's see how well you fight against another dragon, now that your master is near! One of the dragons grabs Scream, throwing her into the air as the other dragons begin biting and throwing her about until they let her fall. Scream says that there is only pain, but Andy yells for her to hold on. Stay with her. Scream, don't let go! Scream crashes onto a car in the street with enough force to shake off Scream's hold and slowly drip away. The dragons begin to swarm Andy as she lays on the car, and as they sniff the air, the Hellmark begins to burn and Andy blasts them away with hellfire. She tells Scream that they are not being separated, not today, and as Scream is slithering off, she begins to come back to Andy, taking hold of her. And Andy says that they will learn from their pain, they will feel it, understand it, and they will harness it. Other dragons begin to surround them, and Scream lets out a burst of hellfire, obliterating everything around her. Null looks down. That is unfortunate. The galaxy has sullied my progeny. Their hosts have tainted their purity, corrupted them. As he jumps down, Scream continues to blast away all of the nearby dragons until Null lands charging at her. He cuts through the winding hair and punches Scream down, telling her, "You should join me yourself." He then places his sword on the Hellmark, and as he pushes the sword down, Scream burns the sword, hitting Null with a blast in the face. She yells that they did it. She can feel it through the hive. This hurts him. Null is wounded, and with half his face burnt, Null looks down and Andy says, "That, or we really just pissed him off, Scream." But it is good to know that this god is not as invincible as he thinks. Null reaches down, stating, well, you are full of surprises, and I hate surprises. It is time to extinguish that flame. Now look upon me, child, and see the face of your demise. As Null squeezes down a Scream's neck, she says that she has a better idea, and screams, releasing all of her energy, creating a massive hellfire explosion. Null gets back up as his body reforms, stating, "How does one harness such pain?" And she tells him it's simple. It's all they've ever felt, all they've ever had. It's what bonded them. It's what makes them forged in hellfire. Null jumps up onto a passing dragon, stating, "I have grown tired of your games. You have amused me, which is why I will let you live for now." And Scream yells that he better keep his ears peeled. The next one to scream will be him! Scream then asks if it was really wise to taunt him, and Andy says, "Who knows? Who cares? What matters now is we know we can hurt him." As the world smolders around them, the Silver Surfer and Null face off with one another. But Null, he can sense that he has met the Surfer before. The Surfer tells him that they have indeed met, and even now, he remains unimpressed. For there is another now, the God of Light. As the Surfer creates a sword out of his board, Null rises, telling him, "Yes, I have heard. But no matter how fast light travels, darkness is always there, waiting. In a way, I admire the little light. I remember them, and they will die a noble death, Surfer." The Silver Surfer turns to him, "Perhaps, but I will not face you alone." As Null looks over, he can see the rest of Earth's heroes running at him, with Captain America leading the charge, yelling, "Avengers, assemble!" But before they could engage, something separates the heroes from Null in the form of an explosion of light and a familiar voice telling them, "I appreciate the assist, but..." Eddie Brock stands up, infused with the Enigma Force, telling them, "I'll take it from here." Null begins to laugh. "What is this? The great God of Light has chosen a host that I've already killed? How many times now? Is this supposed to scare me? You don't possibly think that you can!" But Eddie holds up his hand, summoning not only Thor's hammer, but Silver Surfer's board, telling him, "Yeah, I do think." He takes a hold of Mjolnir and the board, slamming them together with a thundering ka-chong, creating a weapon fitting of a venom, a giant battle axe. He leaps into the air, swinging the massive weapon, narrowly missing Null, forcing him to flee. But Eddie can feel it. Null is hiding, running, throwing everything he can in their way. First, the dragons attack him, and with one swing, his symbiote entrails are slung about as far as the axe can fling them. Eddie then yells to Null to stop hiding, and through the bloody mist, Null lunges in, asking, "You want your end? Then let the All Black be!" But as Null brings his sword down, Eddie catches the blade, telling him, "No! No more swords, no more dragons. Just you and me, Null." Eddie throws himself into Null as the two crash down into the ground below, and as Eddie lifts his axe, he asks, "You wanted darkness! I hope you enjoy it." Null cackles, telling him, "We are nothing but darkness!" And then there's a rumble as the giant celestial arm bursts through, reaching for Eddie. However, Eddie doesn't wait. He leaps up to the celestial's head, and with one fiery swing, he decapitates it. He turns back, flying down, picking up Null standing over a high ledge, and then he asks, "Do you remember when you dragged me up from the sewers? All that pain, the fear, the agony as you ripped my other from me?" Null begins to tell him, "You can't!" Then Eddie buries his axe into Null, telling him, "I remember it. All of it!" As Eddie pulls back, he tears off Null's symbiote, asking, "And do you want to know what I remember the most? I remember feeling hopeless, helpless, and falling." Null's fragile body slams into the ground below as Eddie follows up, telling him, "Get up! We're not done!" Null sits up laughing through the blood that is pouring out of his mouth. "You can't win! You may kill me, but the darkness, it will live on in your son!" Eddie grabs Null, shooting off into the sky, asking, "You want to talk about my son? Let's go talk!" He bursts through the symbiote dome into space, and Null tells him that the darkness has teeth, child. And Eddie asks, "Yeah? Well, so do I!" He opens up his mouth, spewing cosmic energy down on Null's head, melting his mind as he screams in pain. They continue flying, and Eddie tells him, "You might have been right. There will always be darkness. We may all be swallowed by it. We may all lose. We may all be consumed by the void, doomed to drown in your kingdom of black. But me, I don't care. This is for Dylan." Eddie holds out Null's body, pushing it into the first layer of the sun, burning him away until there's nothing left. Then he hears a voice. The voice asking if he can feel it. He's done it. And the others are singing to him. Null is gone, his hive. They are free. Back on Earth, the vampires all cheer, stating that they did it. Victory. Finally, their nation shall be recognized for the noble state it is. Hail Dracula. And Blade cuts his way through that pack, with the vampires managing to bring him down to the ground as he laughs. The vampires ask what's so funny. Blade tells him that he just happens to know what time it is. Before they could even ask, the symbiote dome shatters, letting the sunlight in, destroying them all. Thor and the Silver Surfer look at the battle axe and both hold out their hands, calling their weapons back. The axe begins to shake as Mjolnir and the board split apart, and Thor says that it would appear the battle has been won. The Surfer says indeed, the battle is done. However, he does not think that things will be the same. As Eddie returns to the Earth, the symbiotes begin to swirl around and everyone cheers that he did it. But Eddie, he doesn't care. He has somebody else he needs to see. Dylan begins to struggle, but Eddie grabs him, telling him, "Hey, hang on. Everything's going to be okay." Dylan tells him that the darkness is in him. But Eddie tells him, "I know, just listen, okay? I love you, and everything's going to be okay." Dylan asks, what about the piece of Null inside of him? He can feel them burning. Eddie holds up his hand, glowing with cosmic energy, and he says that he knows. Try to breathe. This is going to hurt. So Eddie then thrusts his arm into Dylan's chest, and as Dylan screams, he tells him it's okay. It's going to be okay. He knows that it hurts. As Eddie pulls back, he takes the piece of Null with him, telling him that he made him a promise, that his son will not inherit this darkness. Eddie crushes the wiggling strand of Null, and as he does, he can feel his suit pulling off. He asks what's happening, and the godly voice tells him that he has done well, but they must leave him. He does not need the light to protect him, not anymore. Eddie says that he doesn't understand how will he, but the voice tells him that he has a new role. He has to become something else, something new. Soon the symbiotes begin to crawl up, and Venom shouts, asking if they can hear him. Can he feel it? Can he feel what has happened? Eddie tells him he can. He can hear them all. And Dylan asks if he's okay, and Eddie, bonded back with Venom, says, "Yes, we're okay. Now stay here. I'll be right back." Eddie spreads his wings as he flies into the sky as all of the symbiotes follow. And Venom says that the others are speaking in their ancient tongue because he defeated the void. He freed their kind. He is the hive mind now. Eddie Brock is the god of the symbiotes. Venom is the king in black. Thank you for watching today's episode of Comicstorian Full Story. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this and who your favorite superhero is. And don't forget, you can check out the Comicstorian main channel to get daily videos. You can join us over at Comicstorian Movies, aka Absolutely, the podcast channel, to get our opinions on everything going on in the world of superhero movies, comic books, and video games. Or you can join us over at Mangastorian, where we talk about manga. And don't forget to click the link down below to support us further. This hot sauce is a hot sauce that we have created. Hatchin' Jalapeno is a flavor that we created, which involves infusing whiskey into a hot sauce. No, it's non-alcoholic, and yes, it is FDA approved. Anyway, once again, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you next time, right here.